The alien's laughter cut deeper than any blade. Carl Baker, human archaeologist, stood frozen on the conference stage as Quinn, the Zanari diplomat, tore his research to shreds. Humans too primitive to grasp advanced alien archaeology? Quinn's words dripped with disdain. Perhaps you should stick to digging up your own stone tools. The conference hall on Xenar Prime erupted in cruel mirth. Hundreds of alien eyes bored into Carl, his cheeks burning with humiliation. He gripped the podium, knuckles white, as Quinn continued his barrage of mockery. Hours later, Carl slumped in his quarters, defeat weighing heavily on his shoulders. The soft chime of his communication device barely registered. He considered ignoring it, but duty won out. Opening the message, his eyes widened. Dr. Elias Chen's face filled the screen, pixelated and urgent. "Carl, we found something. You need to come home. Now." The encrypted transmission crackled with static, but the excitement in his mentor's voice was unmistakable. Carl's heart raced. He booked passage on the next transport to Earth, ignoring the sneers and whispers of the Zanari as he boarded. Days later, Carl's shuttle touched down in the heart of the Amazon rainforest. Dr. Chen greeted him, lines of exhaustion etched deep in his face. "Follow me," he said, leading Carl to a makeshift command center. Satellite imagery flickered on a holographic display. Strange energy readings pulsed from an unexplored region of the jungle. "We assembled a team," Dr. Chen explained. "We leave at dawn." The expedition was brutal. Sweltering heat, voracious insects, and treacherous terrain pushed them to their limits. On the fifth day, as hope began to wane, they stumbled upon a hidden entrance. Overgrown vines parted to reveal a massive door of unknown alloy. It took hours to breach, but when they finally entered, collective gasps echoed through the team. A cavernous hangar stretched before them, easily large enough to house a small city. But it wasn't empty. At its center loomed a colossal warship, its sleek lines defying known engineering principles. "Impossible," Carl whispered, approaching the vessel. His hand brushed its hull, and suddenly the ship hummed to life. Lights flickered across its surface, and a booming voice filled the air. "Genetic match confirmed. Welcome, Commander." Carl stumbled back as a holographic interface materialized before him. The ship's AI, a pulsing orb of light, addressed him directly. "I am the Celestial Vanguard, left behind by your ancestors to protect Earth from cosmic threats. You have awakened me just in time." Before Carl could process this revelation, alarms blared throughout the complex. The AI's voice turned urgent. "Warning! Zanari invasion fleet detected. Estimated time to Earth orbit, 6 hours." Carl's mind reeled. The Zanari's mockery, their dismissal of human achievements, it had all been a ruse. They had been planning this all along. As the reality of Earth's peril sank in, Carl straightened his shoulders. He may not understand everything about this ancient ship, but he knew one thing: humanity would not fall without a fight. "Celestial Vanguard," he commanded, his voice steady despite the fear churning in his gut. "Prepare for battle. It's time to show the Zanari what humans are truly capable of." The Celestial Vanguard's AI interface pulsed with an urgent red glow, its warning still echoing through the cavernous hangar. Carl's mind raced, processing the enormity of the situation. He turned to Dr. Chen, who stood frozen, eyes wide with disbelief. "Dr. Chen," Carl said, his voice steadier than he felt, "we need to act fast. Can you establish a secure comm link with Earth Military Command?" Chen snapped out of his stupor, nodding sharply. "On it," he said, rushing to the expedition's communication equipment. Carl turned back to the ship's holographic interface. "Celestial Vanguard, I need a full systems report. What are your combat capabilities?" The AI's voice resonated through the hangar. "Initiating full systems diagnostic. Weapons, propulsion, and defensive systems are at 94% efficiency, detecting multiple inactive systems throughout the complex." As the AI spoke, Carl's fingers danced across the holographic controls. Schematics of the ship's interior flashed before his eyes, revealing decks and chambers he could scarcely comprehend. He pressed his palm against the cool metal of the hull, and a previously invisible hatch slid open with a soft hiss. "I'm going inside," Carl announced to the team, Continue working on communications and see what else you can find in this complex. The ship's interior was a marvel of engineering, its corridors lined with softly glowing panels. Carl made his way to what appeared to be the bridge, guided by the AI's voice. "Welcome, Commander," the AI said as Carl entered the circular command center. "I am designating myself as Arya, Ancient Responsive Intelligence Assistant. How may I assist you?" Carl sank into the central chair, which adjusted to his body. "Arya, we need to prepare for combat. Show me the weapon systems." A three-dimensional display materialized before him, showcasing an array of technology far beyond his understanding. One system in particular caught his attention, a device capable of manipulating gravity itself. "Arya, explain this gravitational manipulation device," Carl requested, his archaeologist's curiosity momentarily overriding his fear. As Arya began her explanation, Dr. Chen's voice crackled over the ship's comm system. "Carl, I've made contact with Earth's military command. General Marcus Steele is en route. He's skeptical, to say the least." Hours passed in a blur of activity. Carl immersed himself in crash course training with Arya, absorbing as much knowledge about the ship's systems as he could. Dr. Chen and the expedition team combed through the ship's database, uncovering fragments of an ancient human civilization that left Carl's head spinning. The sound of approaching helicopters signaled General Steele's arrival. Carl emerged from the ship to find the general, a tall man with steel-gray hair and a perpetual frown, surveying the scene with a mix of awe and suspicion. "Dr. Baker," Steele said, extending a hand, "your colleague filled me in. Show me this ship of yours." As they toured the Celestial Vanguard, Steele's skepticism gave way to steadfast perseverance. "We need to move this ship to a secure facility," he said. "We have less than 5 hours before the Gizanari arrive." Carl nodded, then paused as a thought struck him. "Arya, are there any other systems in this complex we should be aware of?" The AI's voice filled the air. "Affirmative, Commander. Detecting activation of long-dormant systems throughout the facility." They rushed back to the main hangar, where holographic displays had sprung to life. They showed similar vessels hidden across the globe, each in varying states of disrepair. "A fleet," Carl breathed. "We have a fleet." Steele's eyes narrowed. "But only this one's battle-ready. We'll focus on the Celestial Vanguard for now. Dr. Baker, you seem to have a connection with this ship. I'm officially recognizing you as its commander." The next few hours were a whirlwind of preparation. Earth's finest pilots and engineers arrived, integrating their knowledge with the ancient technology. Carl underwent intensive training with Arya, his mind blown as he absorbed information about faster-than-light travel, advanced shielding, and weaponry, beyond his wildest imagination. As they prepared to move the ship, reports flooded in from around the world. Governments were in chaos, populations panicking as news of the impending invasion spread. The Zanari's years of deception had been revealed, their diplomatic missions exposed as an elaborate ruse. Carl stood on the bridge of the Celestial Vanguard, now hovering above the Amazon canopy. General Steele's voice came through the comm system. "We're detecting the Zanari fleet entering the solar system. This is it, Baker. You ready?" Carl looked at the hastily assembled crew around him. Soldiers, scientists, and engineers united in Earth's defense. He thought of Quinn's mocking laughter, of the years of human achievements dismissed and belittled. His heart made. "Arya," he commanded, "set course to intercept the Zanari fleet. It's time to show them what humanity is truly capable of." The Celestial Vanguard surged forward, climbing rapidly through Earth's atmosphere. As the blue sky gave way to the star-studded blackness of space, Carl gripped the arms of his command chair. Humanity's first interstellar battle was about to begin, and he was at the helm. The Celestial Vanguard surged through Earth's atmosphere, leaving a trail of ionized particles in its wake. As the ship breached the exosphere, Carl's grip on the command chair loosened slightly. The vast expanse of space stretched before them, a canvas of infinite possibilities and imminent danger. "Arya, status report," Carl said, his eyes scanning the holographic displays surrounding him. The AI's calm voice filled the bridge. "All systems nominal, Commander. We are now beyond Earth's gravitational influence. Long-range sensors are active and scanning." Suddenly, a series of red dots appeared on the main display. Carl leaned forward, his heart rate spiking. Arya, what are we looking at? Detecting a small group of Zanari vessels entering the solar system, Commander. Based on their size and formation, they appear to be a scouting party. Before Carl could respond, General Steele's gruff voice crackled through the comm system. Baker, we're picking up the same readings down here. Those scouts can't be allowed to report back to their main fleet. Intercept and neutralize. Now. Understood, General, Carl replied, his mind racing. He turned to his hastily assembled crew, a mix of military personnel and civilian experts. All right, people, this is what we've been preparing for. Let's show these Zanari what we're made of. Carl worked with Arya to plot an intercept course, marveling at the ship's ability to traverse vast distances in mere moments. As they approached the Zanari scouts, he activated the Celestial Vanguard's cloaking technology. Arya, can you give me a visual on the enemy ships? Carl asked. The main display shimmered, revealing 3 Zanari vessels. Each was easily twice the size of Earth's largest spacecraft, their hulls gleaming with an otherworldly alloy. Carl's breath caught in his throat as he realized the true scale of the threat they faced. Weapon systems online, Commander, Arya announced. The gravitational manipulation device is primed and ready. Carl hesitated for a split second, the weight of his next decision pressing down on him. Then with a deep breath, he gave the command. Target the lead ship and fire. The Celestial Vanguard pulsed with energy as the gravitational device activated. A beam of distorted space lanced out, invisible to the naked eye but devastatingly effective. It struck the lead Zanari ship, creating a localized singularity that tore the vessel apart in a silent, spectacular implosion. The bridge erupted in cheers, but Carl remained focused. Arya, status of the remaining ships? The Zanari vessels are regrouping and charging weapons, Commander. Incoming fire detected. Brilliant beams of energy sliced through space, slamming against the Celestial Vanguard's shields. The ship shuddered under the impact but held firm. Shields at 87% and holding, Arya reported. These Zanari energy weapons are significantly more advanced than current Earth technology. Carl's mind raced, trying to formulate a strategy. His eyes darted to the holographic display of the solar system, and an idea struck him. Arya, plot a course for Mars. Maximum speed. The Celestial Vanguard surged forward, its advanced propulsion system leaving the Zanari ship struggling to keep pace. As they approached the red planet, Carl's plan began to take shape. Bring us into a low orbit around Mars, he ordered. Prepare the gravitational device for wide area effect. As the Zanari ships closed in, Carl waited for the perfect moment. When the enemy vessels were in position, he gave the command. Now, Arya! The gravitational device activated once more, this time manipulating Mars's gravity well on a massive scale. The sudden shift caught the Zanari off guard. One of their ships, unable to compensate for the gravitational flux, spiraled out of control and crashed into the Martian surface in a brilliant explosion. The remaining Zanari scout, realizing the danger it faced, abruptly changed course and began to flee. Carl knew they couldn't let it escape and warned the main fleet. Arya, maximum pursuit speed. We can't let that ship get away. The chase led them into the asteroid belt, a treacherous field of floating rocks and debris. Both ships weaved through the obstacles, engaged in a deadly dance of evasion and pursuit. Carl gritted his teeth, his inexperience with space combat becoming painfully apparent as the Zanari ship managed to stay just out of weapons range. Arya, we need options, Carl said, frustration evident in his voice. Does this ship have any other offensive capabilities? Accessing experimental systems, Arya replied. Commander, I've located a prototype tractor beam capable of generating powerful gravitational waves. However, its effects at this range are untested. Carl's eyes narrowed. It's our only shot. Activate the tractor beam. Maximum power. The Celestial Vanguard hummed with energy as the experimental system came online. A massive gravitational pulse erupted from the ship, rippling through space. The fleeing Zanari vessel suddenly stopped in its tracks, caught in the invisible grip of the gravitational wave. As the pulse intensified, the enemy ship began to crumple, its hull buckling under the immense gravitational stress, until it finally imploded in a brilliant flash of light. Silence fell over the bridge as the crew processed what they had just witnessed. Carl slumped back in his chair, the adrenaline slowly ebbing from his system. "Arya, confirm. All Zenari scouts neutralized?" "Confirmed, Commander. No Zenari signatures detected within sensor range." Carl nodded, allowing himself a small smile. "Set a course back to Earth. We need to report to General Steele and prepare for the next phase." As the Celestial Vanguard began its journey home, Carl couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. They had won their first battle, but the war was nowhere near the end. The true test still lay ahead, as Earth braced itself for the arrival of the main Zenari invasion fleet. As the Celestial Vanguard approached Earth, Carl's mind raced with the implications of their recent victory. The ship's sensors pinged, alerting him to an incoming transmission from General Steele. "Baker, we've got a new mission for you." Steele's gruff voice filled the bridge. "Our analysts have uncovered evidence of hidden caches of advanced technology left by the ancient human civilization. Your first target is in the Siberian tundra." Carl straightened in his chair. "Understood, General. We'll set course immediately." As the ship changed direction, Carl briefed his crew on their new objective. The Celestial Vanguard soared over the planet's surface, the frozen expanse of Siberia stretching out below them. "Arya, scan for energy signatures similar to our own power core," Carl instructed. Moments later, Arya responded, "Energy signature detected, Commander. It's buried deep beneath the permafrost." The ship touched down near the coordinates, kicking up a flurry of snow. Carl led a ground team out into the biting cold, their breath forming clouds in the frigid air. Using the ship's advanced excavation tools, they quickly cut through the frozen earth. Hours passed as they dug deeper, the temperature dropping further as night fell. Finally, their efforts revealed a sealed vault, its entrance adorned with familiar symbols. "It matches the markings from the Amazon complex," Dr. Chen observed, her voice filled with excitement. Carl nodded, carefully examining the ancient security measures. With Arya's guidance, they bypassed the intricate locking mechanism. The vault door swung open with a hiss of stale air. Inside, they found a treasure trove of artifacts and weapons, but it was a set of blueprints that caught Carl's attention. He unrolled the ancient document, his eyes widening as he realized its significance. This is a plan to modify Earth's satellite network into a defensive grid," he said, his voice filled with awe. "It could generate a planet-wide energy shield." Without hesitation, Carl transmitted the information to General Steele. As they continued to explore the vault, cataloging its contents, a low rumble shook the ground. "Commander," Arya's voice came through their comms, "I'm detecting unstable energy fluctuations. The prolonged isolation appears to have caused some technology to deteriorate." As if on cue, a surge of power coursed through the vault. Sparks flew from ancient consoles and the walls groaned ominously. "Everyone out now!" Carl shouted, grabbing as many artifacts as he could carry. The team scrambled towards the exit, the ground shaking beneath their feet. Suddenly, a piece of malfunctioning equipment exploded, sending shrapnel flying. Lieutenant Sarah Hawkins cried out in pain as a jagged piece of metal tore through her leg. Carl rushed to her side, hoisting her up. "Come on, we've got to move!" As they staggered towards the exit, Carl made the agonizing decision to leave some artifacts behind. The team barely made it out before the vault imploded, burying the remaining technology under tons of rock and ice. Back aboard the Celestial Vanguard, Carl received an urgent communication from Earth. General Steele's face appeared on the main screen, his expression grave. "Baker, the situation down here is deteriorating rapidly," Steele reported. "Several nations are threatening preemptive nuclear strikes against suspected Zenari collaborators. And we've got a new problem. A pro-Zenari cult calling themselves the Children of Xenar is gaining traction." Carl's heart sank as he processed the news. "What are our orders, sir?" "The UN has declared a global state of emergency and granted me emergency powers. Your mission now has two objectives: continue recovering the ancient technology and assist in maintaining global stability." As Carl acknowledged the orders, Arya interrupted. "Commander, long-range sensors have detected unusual activity in the Kuiper Belt. Analysis suggests it could be the vanguard of the Zenari invasion fleet. Carl's mind raced, weighing his options. Before he could respond, the ship's communication system pinged with an incoming message. "Commander Baker," a distorted voice came through. "I have vital information about the Zenari's true intentions. Meet me at the secret research facility on Mars." Carl hesitated, torn between investigating this new lead and continuing their urgent mission. As he pondered his next move, the bridge door slid open, revealing a tall, imposing figure. "Commander Jack Sterling, reporting for duty," the newcomer announced, his voice imbued with confidence bordering on arrogance. "General Steele thought you could use Earth's top combat pilot on your team." Carl studied Sterling, sensing the immediate tension his presence brought to the bridge. With time running out and the fate of humanity hanging in the balance, he knew the decisions he made next would shape the course of the coming conflict. Conflict. Carl took a deep breath, pushing aside his reservations about Sterling's presence. There were more pressing matters at hand. "Area, set a course for the Kuiper Belt," Carl ordered, his voice firm. "We need to investigate that unusual activity." Commander Sterling's eyebrows shot up. "The Kuiper Belt? With all due respect, Commander Baker, shouldn't we be focusing on fortifying Earth's defenses?" Carl shook his head. "If that activity is what I think it is, we might not have time for fortifications. We need to know what we're dealing with." As the celestial vanguard accelerated towards the outer reaches of the solar system, tension filled the bridge. The crew worked in near silence, the gravity of their mission weighing heavily on their shoulders. Hours later, Area's voice broke through the quiet. "Commander, sensors are detecting a massive energy signature consistent with a large fleet emerging from faster-than-light travel." Carl leaned forward in his chair. "Maintain cloaking field. Bring us in closer, but stay alert." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a sight that made even the seasoned crew members gasp. Hundreds of Zenari ships materialized in the void of space, their sleek forms glinting in the distant sunlight. "My God," Sterling muttered. "There are far more of them than our intelligence suggested." Carl's mind raced as he assessed the situation. "Area, can you intercept any communications between their ships?" "Affirmative, Commander. Translating now." As Arya processed the alien language, Carl studied the Zenari fleet's movements. They seemed to be organizing themselves around several large Kuiper Belt objects. "Translation complete," Arya announced. "Commander, this is not the main invasion fleet. It appears to be an advanced force sent to establish a forward base of operations in our solar system. They plan to convert several large Kuiper Belt objects into weaponized platforms for their assault on Earth." Carl's blood ran cold. He immediately opened a secure channel to Earth. "General Steele, this is Baker. We have a situation." He quickly relayed the information to the general, who responded with a grim acknowledgement. "Gather as much intel as you can, Baker, but do not engage. We can't risk losing our only advanced ship." As Carl closed the channel, Sterling stepped forward. "Commander, we can't just sit here and watch. We have the element of surprise. We should strike now, while we have the chance." Carl shook his head. "Our orders are clear, Commander. We're here to gather intelligence, not start a war." Before Sterling could argue further, Arya interrupted. "Commanders, the Zenari ships are deploying massive energy collection arrays around a nearby dwarf planet. Analysis suggests they are preparing to power the conversion process." Carl watched as the arrays began to form a web around the celestial body. The realization hit him like a physical blow. If the Zenari succeeded in establishing this foothold, Earth would stand no chance against the invasion. He clenched his fists, knowing he was about to disobey a direct order. "Area, prepare the gravitational weapons. We're going to disrupt their energy collection process." Sterling's eyes lit up. "Now you're talking, Baker. Let me take the helm. If we're going to do this, we'll need to get in close without being detected." Carl nodded, recognizing the value of Sterling's piloting skills. "Do it. But remember, this is a precision strike. We can't reveal the full extent of our capabilities." As Sterling took control, the celestial vanguard glided silently through the Zenari fleet. Carl held his breath, watching as they approached the energy collection arrays. "On my mark," Carl said, his finger hovering over the weapons control. 3, 2, 1, now! The celestial vanguard fired a series of gravitational pulses, each one precisely targeted at key points in the array network. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The arrays began to malfunction, colliding with each other in a cascading chain reaction. Chaos erupted among the Zanari ships as they scrambled to respond to the unexpected attack. Carl allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction, but it quickly faded as Arya spoke up. "Commander, the Zanari have detected our energy signature. They are mobilizing to search for us." Carl's mind raced. They had bought Earth some time, but at a cost. "Sterling, get us out of here. Maximum speed back to Earth." The celestial vanguard's faster-than-light drive engaged, propelling them away from the Kuiper Belt. As the stars streaked by, Carl knew that their element of surprise was gone. The Zanari would be coming for Earth sooner than anyone had anticipated. As they approached Earth orbit, Carl prepared himself for the difficult conversations ahead. He had disobeyed orders, potentially accelerated the Zanari invasion, and still had no clear path to victory. The ship's communication system chirped, signaling an incoming message from Dr. Elias Chen. Carl accepted the transmission, wondering what new complication awaited him now. "Commander Baker?" Chen's excited voice filled the bridge. "We've made a breakthrough in analyzing the ancient database. There's a reference to a powerful weapon hidden beneath the surface of Venus. If it exists, it might be our best hope against the Zanari fleet." Carl's mind whirled with the implications of this new information. A weapon on Venus? It seemed impossible. Yet after everything he'd seen, he couldn't discount it. As he opened his mouth to respond, another message alert sounded, this one marked as urgent and encrypted. With a sense of foreboding, Carl accessed the message. The distorted voice from earlier filled the bridge once again. "Commander Baker, time is running out. The traitor in Earth's high command is closer than you think. Trust no one. The fate of humanity rests in your hands." Carl looked around the bridge, his gaze lingering on Sterling for a moment. Trust no one. With the Zanari advance force regrouping and the main invasion fleet approaching, Carl realized that his next decision could determine the fate of not just Earth, but the entire human race. The weight of his responsibility settled heavily on his shoulders as he considered his options. After a moment of tense silence, Carl made his decision. "Set a course for Venus," he ordered, his voice firm and resolute. Commander Sterling's brow furrowed. "Venus? What about the traitor in Earth's high command?" Carl turned to face him, his expression grave. "We can't ignore the potential of this weapon, Sterling. It could be our best chance against the Zanari. I'll inform General Steele about the suspected traitor and advise him to conduct a covert investigation." As the Celestial Vanguard altered its course, Carl opened a secure channel to Earth. He briefed General Steele on the situation, careful to keep his message cryptic in case it was intercepted. "Understood, Baker," Steele responded, his voice tight with concern. "We'll handle things on this end. Good luck on Venus." With communications closed, Carl assembled his team. Dr. Elias Chen joined them on the bridge, his eyes alight with excitement despite the dire circumstances. "Arya, engage cloaking technology," Carl commanded as they approached Earth's orbit. "We can't risk detection by either our own people or any Zanari scouts." The ship's advanced systems hummed to life, rendering them invisible to both visual and technological detection. As they accelerated away from Earth, the blue planet slowly shrank behind them, a poignant reminder of what was at stake. Their journey to Venus was tense, filled with preparations and speculations about what they might find. Arya's voice broke through the focused atmosphere on the bridge. "Commander, we are approaching Venus. I'm detecting an anomalous energy signature beneath the planet's atmosphere, consistent with the coordinates provided by Dr. Chen's research." Carl leaned forward, studying the swirling toxic clouds of Venus on the main view screen. "Take us in, Sterling. Nice and easy." As they descended into Venus's atmosphere, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared as the shield strained against the intense heat and pressure. "Hull integrity at 82% and falling," Arya reported. "The atmosphere is more corrosive than anticipated." Sterling's hands flew over the controls, his face a mask of concentration. "I've got this," he muttered, guiding the ship through violent wind currents and around massive volcanic structures. After what seemed like an eternity of nerve-wracking descent, they broke through the lower cloud layer. Before them loomed a colossal structure, partially buried in the Venusian landscape. "My God," Dr. Chen whispered, awe evident in his voice. "It's real." Carl turned to his team. "Suit up, we're going in." Donning specialized protective suits, Carl led a small expedition team out of the ship. The moment they stepped onto the Venusian surface, the hostility of the environment became painfully clear. Even through their advanced suits, they could feel the oppressive heat and pressure. They approached the structure cautiously, Araya guiding them with continuous scans. As they neared what appeared to be an entrance, they encountered their first obstacle, a complex locking mechanism covered in unfamiliar symbols. Dr. Chen stepped forward, his eyes darting across the ancient script. "This is similar to what we found in the Amazon, but far more advanced," he said, his voice filled with excitement despite the dire circumstances. "Give me a moment." As Chen worked on deciphering the lock, Carl kept a watchful eye on their surroundings. The Venusian landscape was alien and foreboding, with jagged rock formations disappearing into the hazy, sulfurous atmosphere. A satisfying click echoed through their comms as the lock disengaged. The massive door slowly ground open, revealing a dark passageway leading into the heart of the structure. "Stay alert," Carl warned as they entered. "We don't know what kind of security measures might still be active after all this time." They moved deeper into the facility, encountering a series of puzzles and security measures that tested their wits and Chen's expertise. Each solved puzzle brought them closer to the heart of the structure, and Carl could feel the anticipation building among his team. Finally, they entered a vast chamber that took their breath away. In the center stood an enormous device, pulsing with a faint but discernible energy. "Arya, what are we looking at?" Carl asked, his voice hushed with awe. "Analysis indicates this is a gravitational manipulation system of immense power," Arya responded. "It appears capable of altering the orbits of entire planets." As they marveled at the ancient technology, Sterling's voice crackled over the comms. "Baker, we've got a problem. Long-range sensors have picked up a Zanari scouting party entering the inner solar system. They're on a direct course for Venus." Carl's mind raced. They were out of time. "Chen, can we activate this thing?" The scientist nodded, already moving towards what appeared to be a control console. "I believe so, but it will take time to initialize the system safely." "Do it," Carl ordered. He turned to the rest of the team. "We need to get back to the ship and prepare for a potential confrontation." As they rushed back through the ancient facility, Carl's comm unit pinged with an incoming encrypted message. He opened it to find General Steele's grim face. "Baker, our investigation has uncovered something disturbing," Steele said, his voice low and urgent. "We have reason to believe the traitor may be someone on your team. Watch your back." Carl's blood ran cold as he looked at his team members, each focused on their tasks. One of them could be working for the enemy. As they boarded the Celestial Vanguard and prepared for the approaching Zanari scouts, Carl realized he was facing a three-front battle. Against the aliens, against time, and now against an unknown traitor in their midst. With the ancient weapons slowly coming to life beneath them and enemy ships approaching, Carl steeled himself for the difficult decisions ahead. The fate of Earth, and possibly the entire solar system, now rested on his shoulders. Shoulders as he considered his options. Carl took a deep breath, his mind racing. The weight of the potential traitor's presence threatened to overwhelm him, but he knew he couldn't let it distract him from the immediate threat. He turned to his team, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "We have incoming Zanari scouts. Our priority is to activate this weapon and defend our position. Sterling, get back to the Celestial Vanguard and prepare for a possible engagement. Chen, you're with me. We need to get this device operational now." As Sterling and the others hurried back to the ship, Carl and Dr. Chen returned to the ancient facility. The massive spherical construct at its center pulsed with an otherworldly energy, its low hum growing more intense with each passing moment. Chen's fingers flew across the alien controls, his brow furrowed in concentration. "I'm making progress, Commander. The system architecture is complex, but there are patterns, similarities to what we found in the Amazon." Carl watched the scientist work, his eyes darting between Chen and the surrounding chamber. Who among them could be the traitor? He pushed the thought aside, focusing on the task at hand. "How much longer, Doctor?" Carl asked, tension evident in his voice. Chen shook his head. "Minutes, maybe. But, Commander, we barely understand what this device is capable of. Activating it without proper—" Carl's comm unit crackled to life, cutting Chen off. Sterling's urgent voice filled the chamber. "Baker, Zanari scouts entering Venus's orbit. We've got maybe 5 minutes before they pinpoint our location." Carl's eyes sharp. "Understood. Stand by." He turned to Chen. "We're out of time, Doctor. We need to activate it now." Chen's eyes widened. "But, sir, the consequences could be—" "That's an order, Chen. Do it." With visible reluctance, Chen input a final sequence. The hum of the device rose to a fever pitch, the pulsing light intensifying until it was almost blinding. Carl shielded his eyes as a massive surge of energy exploded outward from the sphere. The entire structure shook violently, nearly knocking them off their feet. Through the facility's sensors, they watched in awe as a colossal gravitational wave rippled through space, catching the approaching Zanari ships in its wake. The alien vessels spun out of control, colliding with each other in a spectacular display of destruction. Several were flung clear out of Venus's orbit, tumbling end over end into the void. But the wave didn't stop there. Carl and Chen watched in horror as it continued to expand, its effects rippling through the inner solar system. Mercury's orbit visibly shifted, and the asteroid belt churned with increased collisions. "My God," Chen whispered, "what have we done?" Carl's mind raced. They had to shut it down before the damage became irreparable. "Chen, initiate shutdown procedures. Now!" The scientist's fingers flew across the controls, but the device showed no signs of powering down. If anything, the energy buildup seemed to be intensifying. "It's not responding," Chen shouted over the growing roar of the machine. "The systems are locked into some kind of automated sequence. It's preparing for another pulse." Carl's comm unit crackled again. This time, it was Arya's calm voice that greeted him. "Commander, sensors detect a large Zanari fleet accelerating towards our position. Estimated time of arrival, 37 minutes. Before Carl could respond, another transmission cut in. General Steele's face appeared on the small screen, his expression grim. "Baker, what the hell is going on out there? We're getting reports of massive seismic activity, tsunamis, extreme weather patterns. Half the planet is in panic." Carl's heart sank. Their attempt to defend Earth had instead put it in even greater peril. "General, we've activated an ancient weapon, but we've lost control. We're working on shutting it down now." Steele's face hardened. "Fix this, Baker, whatever it takes." As the transmission cut out, Sterling's voice came through once more. "Commander, the remaining Zanari scouts are regrouping. They're moving to attack our position. We're preparing for defensive action, but we're severely outnumbered." Carl looked at the pulsing sphere, then back at Chen, who was still frantically working at the controls. In that moment, he made a decision that he knew could change everything. "Chen, step aside," he ordered, moving towards the central console. "Commander, what are you doing?" Carl placed his hands on the alien interface, feeling the energy coursing through it. "Something stupid and probably dangerous, but it might be our only chance." As his fingers made contact with the controls, Carl felt a jolt of energy surge through his body. His vision blurred, and suddenly he was no longer in the Venusian facility. Images flashed through his mind, glimpses of an ancient human civilization, far more advanced than anything in recorded history. He saw the creation of the weapon, the cosmic threat it was built to face, and the reason for its burial on Venus. The knowledge flooded his consciousness, overwhelming yet clarifying. He began to understand the true nature of the Zanari invasion, humanity's forgotten past, and the key to controlling the weapon. With newfound clarity, Carl manipulated the device's systems. The energy buildup began to stabilize, the threat of another pulse receding, but he knew this was only the beginning. As he worked to bring the weapon under control, Carl was acutely aware of the multiple threats converging on them. The incoming Zanari fleet, the immediate danger from the regrouping scouts, the damage being done to Earth and the solar system, and the unknown traitor in their midst. The next few moments would determine not just the outcome of this battle, but the fate of humanity itself. And as the celestial vanguard prepared for combat above, Carl raced against time to master the ancient weapon and uncover the truth behind humanity's long-lost legacy. Heritage. As Carl's hands moved across the alien interface, a jolt of energy surged through his body, and his vision blurred. Suddenly, he found himself immersed in a flood of information, glimpses of an ancient human civilization far more advanced than anything in recorded history. The images flashed through his mind at dizzying speed. The creation of the weapon, the cosmic threat it was built to face, and the reason for its burial on Venus. Carl gasped as the knowledge settled into his consciousness, overwhelming yet clarifying. "Chen!" he called out, his voice strained. "This isn't just a weapon, it's a shield!" Dr. Chen looked up from his console, confusion etched on his face. "What do you mean, Commander?" Carl's fingers flew across the controls with newfound understanding. It was designed to protect against a species called the Void Eaters. They consumed entire star systems. This device, it can alter the gravitational fabric of space itself, creating a barrier they couldn't penetrate. Chen's eyes widened as he processed the information. Fascinating. But how does that help us now? "We need to recalibrate the targeting parameters," Carl explained, his mind racing. "It's not meant to attack the Zanari, but to shield our entire solar system." As they worked to modify the weapon's systems, Carl's comm unit crackled to life. Commander Sterling's voice came through, tense and urgent. "Baker, we've got company. Zanari scout ships are launching an attack on the facility. We're engaging now, but we're outnumbered." Carl gritted his teeth. "Hold them off as long as you can, Sterling. We're working on a solution." With a deep breath, Carl initiated a controlled gravitational pulse. The ancient device hummed to life, its energy building to a crescendo. A massive wave of distorted space-time erupted from the facility, washing over Venus and the surrounding area. The effect was immediate. Through the facility's sensors, they watched as the Zanari ships spun out of control, their trajectories thrown into chaos by the localized gravitational anomaly. "It worked!" Chen exclaimed, his excitement palpable. But their victory was short-lived. The facility shuddered violently, and warning alarms blared throughout the structure. Chen's face paled as he read the incoming data. "Commander, the pulse has destabilized Venus's already fragile geology. The facility is starting to break apart." Carl's mind raced, weighing their options. They couldn't abandon the weapon, not when it was their best hope against the Zanari threat, but they couldn't stay in a collapsing structure either. Suddenly, Arya's calm voice cut through the chaos. "Commander, I've detected an unauthorized transmission from within the facility. It appears to be directed at the Zanari fleet." Carl's blood ran cold. The traitor. In the heat of battle, he'd almost forgotten General Steele's warning. "Can you pinpoint the source area?" "Affirmative. The transmission originated from Dr. Chen's assistant, Marcus Volkov." Carl's eyes snapped to the young scientist working at a nearby console. Volkov's back was turned, his attention seemingly focused on his work. But now, with this new information, Carl could see the tension in his shoulders, the furtive glances he cast towards the exit. "Arya, lock down all communication systems," Carl ordered, his voice low and controlled. "Sterling, we have a situation. Volkov is the traitor. Apprehend him immediately." As if sensing he'd been discovered, Volkov sprang into action. He lunged for the weapon's controls, his fingers flying across the interface. Carl moved to intercept him, but Volkov was closer. "No!" Chen shouted, realizing what was happening. "He's trying to overload the core!" Carl tackled Volkov, sending them both crashing to the ground. They grappled fiercely, each fighting for control. Despite his smaller size, Volkov fought with the desperate strength of a cornered animal. Just as Volkov's hand closed around a fallen piece of equipment, ready to strike, the door to the chamber burst open. Sterling charged in, his weapon drawn. "Freeze!" he commanded. Volkov hesitated for a split second, and that was all Carl needed. He wrenched the makeshift weapon from Volkov's grasp and pinned him to the ground. Sterling moved in swiftly, securing the traitor with restraints. With Volkov subdued, Carl returned his attention to the ancient device. The facility continued to shake, chunks of the ceiling beginning to rain down around them. Chen, what's the status of the weapon? The scientist's fingers flew across the controls, his brow furrowed in concentration. I've managed to stabilize it, but the power requirements for a full solar system shield are enormous. The facility can't handle the strain. Carl made a split-second decision. We need to move the core, prep it for extraction. We'll integrate it with the Celestial Vanguard systems. As Chen and his team worked to disengage the weapon's core, Carl opened a channel to the ship. Sterling, get the Vanguard ready for some quick modifications. We're bringing a package that's going to need a lot of power. Understood, Sterling replied, the sounds of ongoing battle clear in the background. But you'd better hurry. The Zanari scouts are regrouping, and our long-range sensors show their main fleet approaching fast. Carl looked around the crumbling chamber, at his team working feverishly to extract the weapon's core, at the restrained Volkov glaring daggers at him. They were in a race against time, with the fate of Earth hanging in the balance. The real challenge, he realized, was only just beginning. The extraction of the weapon's core was a delicate operation, made all the more precarious by the facility's continuous tremors. Carl wiped sweat from his brow as he helped Chen carefully disconnect the final power coupling. That's it, Chen announced, his voice strained. The core is free. We need to move quickly. Carl nodded, keying his comm. Sterling, we're ready for evac. Bring the Vanguard in close. As they secured the core for transport, the facility gave an ominous groan. Chunks of ceiling crashed down around them, forcing the team to dodge and weave as they made their way to the exit. The Celestial Vanguard descended through Venus's turbulent atmosphere, a beacon of hope in the chaos. Its sleek form hovered just outside the crumbling structure. Cargo bay doors opened wide. Go, go, go! Carl shouted, urging his team forward. They sprinted across the gap, the precious core cradled between them. As the last team member leapt aboard, the facility behind them began to collapse in earnest. Once safely inside, Carl wasted no time. Get us back to Earth, maximum speed. Chen, start working on integrating the core with the Vanguard systems. The ship rocketed away from Venus, leaving the doomed facility far behind. As they approached Earth, Carl's heart sank at the sight that greeted them. The planet was in turmoil, massive storms visibly swirling across its surface. My God, Sterling breathed, staring at the main view screen. What have we done? Carl's comm unit crackled to life, General Steele's grim face appearing on the screen. Baker, the situation down here is critical. We've got tsunamis, earthquakes, storms like nothing we've ever seen. And that's not the worst of it. What do you mean, sir? Carl asked, dreading the answer. Several nations are on the brink of launching nuclear strikes. They think this is some kind of attack. If we don't do something fast, we might not have a planet left to save from the Zanari. Carl's mind raced. They needed to stabilize the planet and prevent global panic, all while preparing for the impending alien invasion. An idea formed, risky but potentially game-changing. General, patch me through to every communication channel you can access. TV, radio, internet, everything. We need to get a message out to the entire world. Steele nodded, his image flickering as he relayed orders. You're live in 30 seconds, Baker. Make it count. Carl took a deep breath, steadying himself. As the red light on the comm unit blinked on, he began to speak. People of Earth, my name is Commander Carl Baker of the Celestial Vanguard. What I'm about to tell you will be difficult to believe, but I assure you, every word is true. He explained about the ancient human civilization, the Zanari threat, and the true nature of the recent gravitational disturbances. As he spoke, Chen worked feverishly to connect the weapon core to the ship's systems. The device we've recovered is our best hope for survival against the coming invasion. But first, we must use it to save ourselves from the chaos we've inadvertently unleashed. Carl nodded to Chen, who activated the newly integrated core. The Vanguard shuddered as energy coursed through it. We're positioning our ship over the Pacific Ocean, where a massive tsunami threatens several coastal cities. Watch closely, and you'll see the power we now wield in humanity's defense. On screens across the globe, people watched in awe as the Celestial Vanguard hovered over the raging Pacific. A shimmering field of energy expanded from the ship, enveloping the churning waters below. Slowly but surely, the massive wave began to lose momentum, its fury dissipating under the influence of the localized gravitational field. As the ocean calmed, a hush fell over the watching world. Carl's voice rang out once more, filled with purpose. This is the power we must unite behind. The Zanari are coming, and only together can we hope to survive. I call on all nations to stand down, to join forces against our common enemy. He paused, letting his words sink in. The choice is yours. Fight amongst ourselves and perish, or unite and take our stand against the stars. As Carl's broadcast ended, the Celestial Vanguard's sensors lit up with incoming communications. World leaders, military commanders, and scientists from across the globe reached out, offering support and resources. It worked, Sterling said, a note of wonder in his voice. They're actually listening. Carl allowed himself a moment of relief before focusing on the monumental task ahead. All right, let's get to work. We need to establish a network of gravitational field generators around the planet. As the Vanguard descended towards a designated command center, Carl turned to Chen. Doctor, I need you to lead a team in deciphering more of that ancient database. Focus on anything related to Zanari weaknesses or combat tactics. Chen nodded, already pulling up data on his tablet. I'll coordinate with the global scientific community. We'll find something we can use against them. The ship touched down amidst a flurry of activity. Military personnel and civilian scientists swarmed around them, eager to begin work on Earth's new defensive network. Carl stepped off the Vanguard, his mind already racing with plans and strategies. As he surveyed the organized chaos around him, a familiar voice caught his attention. Commander Baker, Sterling called out, jogging up to him with a group of pilots in tow. I've assembled our best for training on the new spacecraft designs. We're ready to begin combat exercises as soon as you give the word. Carl nodded approvingly. Good work, Sterling. Get them in the air as soon as possible. We need every advantage we can get. As Sterling led his team away, Carl's comm unit beeped. Aria's calm voice filled his ear. Commander, I've detected a massive energy surge at the edge of the solar system. The Zanari main fleet has begun its final approach. Carl's blood ran cold. They were out of time. The gravitational barrier created by the ancient weapon was holding. But for how long? He needed to make a decision, and fast. Just then, another transmission cut through, its origin untraceable. A distorted voice spoke urgently. Baker, this is your Mars contact. We have technology that could turn the tide of this war. Coordinates to follow. Trust me, this could be our only hope. As the mysterious message ended, Carl found himself at a crossroads. Reinforce the barrier, engage the Zanari head-on, or take a chance on this unknown ally on Mars. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, waiting for his next move. Carl's mind raced as he processed the mysterious message from Mars. The approaching Zanari fleet left no room for hesitation. He made his decision. Aria, set a course for the coordinates we just received, Carl ordered, his voice firm. Sterling, you're in charge of Earth's defense. I'm taking the Celestial Vanguard to Mars. Sterling's eyes widened. Sir, with all due respect, we need you here. The Zanari... We'll be here soon enough, Carl interrupted. But this could be our best chance. I need you to hold the line. As the Celestial Vanguard prepared for departure, Carl outlined his strategy to Earth's leaders. We're going to create a trap, he explained, gesturing to a holographic display of the solar system. Partial lowering of the gravitational barrier, here and here. We'll funnel them into zones where we can concentrate our firepower. General Steele nodded approvingly, but others voiced their concerns. It's too risky, one official argued. We should maintain full defenses. Full defenses won't hold against their entire fleet, Carl countered. This gives us a fighting chance. With Steele's backing, the plan was set in motion. Carl watched from the Vanguard's bridge as Earth's forces took up their positions, a network of smaller gravitational field generators creating a complex web of distortions in space. The ship broke away from Earth's orbit, accelerating towards Mars. Carl felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He'd left humanity's fate in Sterling's capable hands, but the outcome of this war might well depend on what they found on the Red Planet. As they approached Mars, Arya's voice cut through Carl's thoughts. Commander, I'm detecting a massive energy signature in the Olympus Mons region. Take us in, Arya, Carl ordered, and maintain cloaking. We don't know what to expect down there. The Celestial Vanguard touched down near the base of the massive volcano. Carl led a small team out onto the rust-colored surface, their suits protecting them from the harsh Martian environment. They hadn't taken more than a few steps when a figure emerged from a hidden entrance in the mountainside. Commander Baker, the man said, his voice distorted through the comm system. I'm Dr. Marcus Reeves. Follow me quickly. There's no time to waste. Carl's team exchanged wary glances, but followed Reeves into the mountain. The narrow passage opened into a vast underground complex that took Carl's breath away. Advanced technology, unlike anything he'd seen before, filled the cavernous space. This facility, Reeves explained as they walked, combines ancient human knowledge with modern advancements. I've been working on something I call the gravitational resonance amplifier. It could be the key to defeating the Zanari. As Reeves led them deeper into the complex, Carl's comm unit crackled to life. Sterling's voice came through, tense and urgent. Commander, the Zanari have breached the outer defenses. They're adapting to the gravitational distortions faster than we anticipated. Carl's face hardened. Hold them off, Sterling. We're working on a solution. They reached a central chamber where a device hummed with scarcely controlled power. Reeves gestured towards it. This is the amplifier. If we can integrate it with your ship's systems, we might be able to turn the tide. Carl nodded, already moving towards the device. Let's get to work. As they began the integration process, another transmission came through. This time, it was Dr. Chen. His voice strained. Commander, we have a problem. The weapon core is becoming unstable. If we push it any harder, we risk a gravitational collapse. Carl closed his eyes, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Scale back the defenses, he ordered. We can't risk destroying ourselves. The next few hours were a blur of frantic activity. Carl's team worked alongside Reeves to integrate the amplifier with the Vanguard systems, while reports from Earth grew increasingly dire. The Zanari were pushing deeper into the solar system, their massive fleet spreading out as Earth's defenses weakened. Just as they were making the final connections, a Priority 1 transmission came through. General Steele's face appeared on the screen, his expression grim. Baker, we're out of time. The Zanari have launched an all-out assault on our primary defense installations. Sterling says we have a few hours at most before our defenses crumble completely. Carl looked at Reeves, who nodded. It's ready, the scientist confirmed. We're on our way, General, Carl said, already moving towards the Vanguard. Hold on just a little longer. As they boarded the ship, Carl felt the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. The integration of the gravitational resonance amplifier was their last, best hope. If it worked, they might just have a chance against the overwhelming Zanari force. If it failed, Carl pushed the thought aside as he took his place on the bridge. Arya, set a course for Earth. Maximum speed. The Celestial Vanguard lifted off, leaving Mars behind as it raced towards the beleaguered blue planet. Ahead of them lay the Zanari fleet, and beyond that, Earth. Carl knew that the next few hours would determine not just the outcome of this battle, but the very survival of human civilization. As they approached the outer edges of the conflict, Carl opened a channel to all Earth forces. This is Commander Baker. We're coming in hot with a new weapon. All ships prepare to concentrate fire on my mark. Today we take our stand. The Vanguard plunged into the fray, its new systems humming with untested power. Carl's hands tightened on the controls. Everything hinged on what happened next. Next. The Vanguard's engines roared as they pushed to their limits, carrying humanity's last hope into the heart of the battle. As they approached Earth's orbit, Carl's eyes widened at the scene before him. The planet's atmosphere was alight with the flashes of weapons fire, Zanari ships weaving between Earth's defenders in a deadly dance. Arya status report, Carl commanded, his fingers flying over the control panel. The Zanari fleet has penetrated Earth's outer defenses, Arya responded. Commander Sterling's forces are engaged in close-quarters combat within the atmosphere. Earth's military capabilities are estimated to be at 37% and falling rapidly. Carl gritted his teeth. Dr. Reeves, How soon can we bring the amplifier online? Before Reeves could answer, the ship shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as Aria's voice cut through the chaos. Commander, we're experiencing a power fluctuation. The amplifier is destabilizing our systems. Reeves rushed to a nearby console, his fingers dancing across the holographic display. The integration isn't complete, he said, his voice tense. We need a specific type of energy source to stabilize the amplifier. It's not something we have on board. Carl's mind raced. They were so close, yet the solution seemed to be slipping through their fingers. Where can we find this energy source? He demanded. Reeves hesitated for a moment before responding. There's a small cache in the Martian facility, deep within Olympus Mons. But retrieving it would be extremely dangerous. The facility's power grid was already unstable when we left. Carl made his decision in an instant. Aria, set a course back to Mars. Maximum speed. As the Vanguard changed course, Carl opened a channel to Earth. Sterling's face appeared on the screen, his features etched with fatigue and tenacity. Sterling, we've hit a snag, Carl explained quickly. We need to make a detour to Mars. Can you hold out a little longer? Sterling's teeth gritted, but he nodded. We'll do what we have to, sir. But hurry. The Zanari are pushing us back on all fronts. The communication cut off as the Vanguard accelerated towards Mars. Carl turned to his crew. I need a small team to accompany me and Dr. Reeves into the facility. The rest of you, stay with the ship and continue working on stabilizing our systems. Minutes later, Carl led a team of 4 through the harsh Martian landscape. They raced against time, their path illuminated by the glow of Olympus Mons in the distance. As they approached the hidden entrance, they could feel the ground trembling beneath their feet. The facility's power grid is collapsing, Reeves warned as they entered the complex. We need to move fast. They descended deeper into the heart of the Martian mountain, the corridors around them shifting and reconfiguring. Reeves guided them through the maze, his partial knowledge of the facility's layout proving invaluable. Suddenly, the passage ahead of them sealed shut. Carl looked to Reeves, who was studying a holographic map projected from his wrist device. The security systems are active, Reeves explained. We'll have to find another way around. As they navigated through the treacherous facility, the mountain's internal pressure continued to rise. Cracks appeared in the walls and ceiling, showering them with dust and small debris. We're running out of time, one of Carl's crew members shouted over the rumbling of the mountain. Finally, they reached a massive sealed door. Reeves approached a nearby console, his fingers flying over the controls. This is it, he said. The power cell chamber is just beyond this door. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a cavernous room filled with pulsing energy. At its center stood a pillar of light, guarded by a shimmering force field. As they approached, a holographic figure materialized before them. Its form was indistinct, but its voice echoed with authority. Halt! To access the power source, you must prove your worthiness. Carl stepped forward. We don't have time for tests. Earth is under attack. Millions will die if we don't get these power cells. The AI remained impassive. The trials are not negotiable. They are designed to ensure that only those who truly understand our ways can wield this power. Realizing they had no choice, Carl nodded. What do I need to do? The AI presented a series of complex puzzles in ethical dilemmas, each one probing Carl's understanding of the ancient humans' technology and philosophy. As Carl grappled with the challenges, Reeves explored the chamber, his eyes widening as he accessed the facility's databanks. Commander, Reeves called out, his voice filled with urgency. I've found something, information about the Zanari. They're not what we thought. Carl, in the midst of solving a particularly tricky puzzle, glanced over. What do you mean? They were once human, Reeves explained, his voice filled with awe. Part of the ancient empire. They were exiled, evolved over millions of years. This isn't just an invasion, it's a revenge mission. The revelation hit Carl like a physical blow. As he completed the final test, his mind raced with the implications of this new information. The force field around the power cells shimmered and disappeared. Carl quickly gathered the cells, securing them in a protective case. Let's move, he ordered. We need to get this back to the ship. As they turned to leave, the facility shuddered violently. Chunks of the ceiling began to rain down around them. "The whole place is coming down!" one of the crew shouted. They ran through the collapsing corridors, dodging falling debris and leaping over widening chasms. In a heart-stopping moment, a massive column began to topple towards Reeves. Carl lunged forward, tackling the scientist out of harm's way, just as the column crashed to the ground. They emerged from the facility just as Olympus Mons erupted in a massive explosion. The ground beneath their feet bucked and heaved as they sprinted towards the Vanguard. Once aboard, Carl wasted no time. "Get those power cells integrated now," he ordered as the ship lifted off. As they broke through Mars's atmosphere, Carl opened a channel to Earth. Sterling's face appeared, his expression grim. "Sterling, we're on our way," Carl said. "How bad is it?" "Critical, sir," Sterling replied. "The Zanari have breached our last line of defense. They're converging on major population centers. We have less than an hour before our capabilities are completely overwhelmed." Carl nodded, his lips pursed. "Hold on, Commander. We're coming in hot with something that might just turn the tide." As the celestial vanguard hurtled through space towards Earth, Carl could feel the weight of humanity's future pressing down on him. The ship, now enhanced with the gravitational resonance amplifier and armed with the secrets of humanity's ancient past, represented Earth's last hope for survival. Carl turned to his crew, his eyes blazing with purpose. "Prepare for battle stations. We're about to make our stand." "Final stand," Carl declared, his voice steady despite the tension coursing through him. The Vanguard broke through the last vestiges of Mars's atmosphere, accelerating towards Earth with a burst of speed that strained the ship's inertial dampeners. Carl's eyes remained fixed on the main view screen, watching as the blue orb of humanity's homeworld grew larger with each passing second. As they approached Earth's orbit, the true scale of the Zanari invasion became apparent. The planet's atmosphere was alight with the flashes of energy weapons, alien vessels swarming like angry insects around the beleaguered human defenses. The moon's cratered surface bore fresh scars, evidence of a fierce battle that had already taken place there. "Area, give me a full tactical assessment," Carl ordered, his fingers flying over the control panel as he prepared the ship's systems for combat. "Zanari forces have penetrated Earth's outer defenses and are engaged in close-quarters combat within the atmosphere," Area reported. "Human military capabilities are at critical levels. Major population centers are under direct assault from Zanari ground troops." A transmission cut through the din of battle chatter, Commander Sterling's face appearing on the display. His features were haggard, his uniform stained with sweat and grime. "Baker, thank God you're here. We're on our last legs. The orbital defense grid is failing, and we've got Zanari troops making planetfall on every continent." Carl nodded grimly. "We're coming in hot, Jack. We've got something that might just turn this around, but we need to get closer." As Sterling's image blinked out, Carl turned to his crew. "Dr. Reeves, status on the amplifier." Reeves' fingers danced across his console, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Integration is at 87%, Commander. We're experiencing some power fluctuations, but I think we can stabilize it if we—" A violent shudder ran through the ship, cutting off Reeves' words. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as Area's voice cut through the chaos. "Warning, power surge detected in the main reactor. Gravitational resonance amplifier is destabilizing ship systems." "Reroute auxiliary power to the stabilizers?" Carl shouted, his hands gripping the arms of his command chair as the ship bucked beneath them. "Reeves, we need that amplifier online now." Reeves worked feverishly, sweat beading on his forehead as he fought to bring the ancient technology under control. "I've almost got it," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. "Just need to calibrate the resonance frequency to match our power grid." As Reeves worked, Carl made a snap decision. "Area, plot a course directly into Earth's atmosphere. We're going to create a disturbance they won't soon forget." The AI's voice held a note of concern. "Commander, such a maneuver at our current velocity could compromise hull integrity." "Noted," Carl replied tersely. "Do it anyway." The celestial vanguard plunged into Earth's atmosphere, its advanced shielding glowing white-hot as it cut through the air. Carl felt the ship vibrate around him, pushed to its structural limits by the daring maneuver. Now, Reeves! Carl shouted as they reached the optimal altitude. Reeves slammed his hand down on the activation switch, and for a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sound like reality itself tearing apart, the gravitational resonance amplifier roared to life. The effect was immediate and devastating. A massive gravitational wave erupted from the Vanguard, spreading outward in all directions. Zanari ships caught in its path were tossed about like leaves in a hurricane, colliding with each other in spectacular explosions that lit up the sky. "My God," breathed one of the bridge crew, watching the carnage unfold on the main view screen. Carl allowed himself a grim smile. "Arya, target the largest Zanari command ships. Let's show them what this old girl can really do." The Vanguard's weapons came online, their power amplified by the Martian technology to levels never before seen in human history. Beams of coherent energy lanced out, each one striking with the force of a small nuclear detonation. Zanari capital ships, each one a city in space, were torn apart in a series of explosions, visible from the ground as new, short-lived stars in the sky. As the Vanguard carved a path of destruction through the Zanari fleet, Carl opened a channel to Earth's ground forces. General Steele's face appeared on the screen, his eyes widening at the sight of the carnage above. "General," Carl said, his voice tight with concentration as he maneuvered the ship through the debris field they'd created. "Now's your chance. Hit them with everything you've got." Steele nodded, a fierce grin spreading across his face. "With pleasure, Commander. We've got a few surprises of our own down here." As the transmission cut off, Carl turned his attention back to the battle. The Zanari fleet was in disarray, their coordinated assault broken by the Vanguard's unexpected attack. But Carl knew the fight was nowhere near the end. The largest Zanari ships were already regrouping, preparing for a counterattack that could still turn the tide of the battle. "Reeves," Carl called out, his eyes fixed on the approaching Zanari formation. "How many more shots can we get off with the amplifier?" Reeves' response was grim. "One, maybe two at most. The power drain is immense. We risk a total systems failure if we push it any harder." Carl nodded, weighing his options. The majority of the Zanari fleet had been decimated, but a significant contingent remained. One more shot from the amplifier could end the invasion decisively, but at what cost? As he pondered his next move, a new transmission came through. It was Commander Sterling again, his voice filled with a mixture of hope and urgency. "Baker, whatever you did up there has them on the ropes, but we've got reports of a massive Zanari flagship entering the system. If they manage to regroup around it, we could lose everything we've gained." Carl's eyes hardened as he made his decision. "Understood, Jack. We'll take care of it." He turned to his crew, drive etched into every line of his face. "Prepare for our final attack run. We're taking out that flagship, regardless of the cost." As the Celestial Vanguard turned to face this new threat, Carl couldn't help but wonder if he was about to sacrifice humanity's greatest technological achievement to save its homeworld. The choice deeply affected upon him as the massive form of the Zanari flagship loomed into view, a harbinger of destruction that threatened to undo everything they had fought for. With a deep breath, Carl gave the order that would decide the fate of two civilizations. "All hands, battle stations, we're going in." "To make our final stand," Carl declared, his voice steady despite the tension coursing through him. But as he watched the massive Zanari flagship loom into view, a new strategy began to form in his mind. "Belay that last order," he said, his eyes narrowing as he reassessed the situation. "Arya, give me a detailed analysis of the gravitational resonance amplifier's current capabilities." "The amplifier is operating at 73% efficiency," Arya responded. "Full power discharge would likely result in critical system failure." Carl nodded, his decision crystallizing. "Reeves, can we modulate the amplifier to produce smaller, controlled gravitational distortions?" Reeves's fingers flew across his console as he ran the calculations. "Yes, Commander. It would significantly reduce the strain on our systems and allow for multiple uses." "Do it," Carl ordered. "Target the Zanari ship's navigation and weapon systems. We're going to level the playing field without destroying ourselves in the process." The Celestial Vanguard surged forward, weaving through the debris field of the earlier battle. As they closed in on the remaining Zanari fleet, Carl opened a channel to Earth. Sterling, Steele, this is Baker. We're initiating a coordinated attack. Prepare all available forces for immediate engagement on my mark. The acknowledgements came in quick succession as Carl turned his attention back to the battle at hand. Area, initiate gravitational distortion sequence. The ship hummed with power as the amplifier came to life. Instead of the devastating wave they had unleashed earlier, a series of precise, localized distortions erupted from the vanguard. The effect on the Zanari ships was immediate and profound. Alien vessels spun wildly, their sleek forms suddenly ungainly as their navigation systems failed. Energy weapons fired erratically, missing their targets by wide margins. Carl watched with grim satisfaction as the once formidable Zanari fleet dissolved into chaos. "Now!" Carl shouted into the open channel. "All Earth forces, engage!" The response was swift and decisive. From the planet's surface, a barrage of missiles streaked skyward, finding their targets with unerring accuracy. The orbital defense platforms, battered but not broken, unleashed a fusillade of energy beams that tore through the disoriented Zanari ships. As the battle raged around them, Arya's voice cut through the din. "Commander, I'm detecting an unusual energy signature from the Zanari flagship. The pattern matches the ancient human technology we encountered on Mars." Carl's eyes widened as he processed this information. "Reeves, are you seeing this?" The scientist nodded, his expression a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "It's definitely related to the technology we found in the Martian facility. This ship could hold the key to understanding the Zanari's origins." Carl made a split-second decision. "Arya, create a stable gravitational corridor between us and the Zanari flagship. We're going aboard." As the AI complied, Carl turned to his crew. "I need a strike team. Reeves, you're with me. We're going to find out what's on that ship." Within minutes, Carl stood at the airlock with Reeves and a squad of Earth's most elite soldiers. The gravitational corridor shimmered before them, a testament to the incredible power of the ancient technology they now wielded. "Remember," Carl said as they prepared to cross, "we're looking for information. Engage only if necessary. Let's move." They pushed off, floating through the corridor with practiced ease. As they approached the Zanari ship, Carl couldn't help but notice the familiar lines and contours of its design. It was alien, yes, but with an underlying structure that echoed the ancient human technology they had encountered. The team breached the Zanari ship's hull, immediately encountering fierce resistance. The alien crew, caught off guard by the unexpected boarding action, rallied quickly. Energy weapons flashed in the confined corridors as Carl and his team pushed forward. "This way!" Carl shouted, relying on his intuition and knowledge of ancient human layouts to navigate the labyrinthine ship. They fought their way through multiple decks, the close quarters combat intense and unforgiving. As they neared what Carl believed to be the ship's central command center, a massive blast door blocked their path. Reeves rushed forward, his fingers dancing across an alien control panel with surprising familiarity. "The underlying architecture is remarkably similar to what we saw on Mars," he muttered, more to himself than to Carl. "If I can just—" The door hissed open, revealing a vast chamber beyond. As Carl and his team surged forward, they found themselves face to face with a group of Zanari warriors led by a towering figure that could only be their commander. "Hold your fire," Carl ordered, raising his hand to stay his team's weapons. He stepped forward, addressing the Zanari leader directly. "I am Commander Carl Baker of Earth. We need to talk." The Zanari commander, his alien features contorted in what might have been surprise or anger, regarded Carl with piercing eyes. When he spoke, his voice was deep and resonant, filled with the weight of centuries. "I am Zarkoth, last of the original Zanari rebellion. You're either very brave or very foolish to come here. Human." As Carl prepared to respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. A Zanari officer rushed into the chamber, speaking rapidly in their alien tongue. Zarkoth's expression darkened as he turned back to Carl. "It seems your respite was short-lived, human. Our reinforcements have arrived." Carl's mind raced as he processed this new development. The fate of Earth now hung in the balance, dependent on his ability to bridge a gap millions of years in the making. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the most important negotiation of his life. "Zarkoth," he began, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "I think it's time we discuss the true history of our people. Species." Carl paused, his eyes locked with Zarkoth's alien gaze. "I believe it's time we confronted the truth about our shared past." Zarkoth's eyes narrowed, but curiosity flickered across his features. "What do you know of our past, human?" Carl took a deep breath, his mind racing. "The technology on your ship, it's connected to what we found on Mars. I think our civilizations are more intertwined than either of us realized." A tense silence fell over the chamber. Carl could feel the weight of centuries of conflict pressing down on them. He knew he had to act fast, to bridge the gap before the arriving reinforcements could reignite the war. "I propose something radical," Carl said, his voice steady despite the risk he was about to take. "A mind meld, using a combination of our technologies. It's the only way we can truly understand each other." Zarkoth's expression shifted, a mix of surprise and intrigue. "You would risk such an intimate connection with an enemy?" "I would risk it to end this war," Carl replied firmly. Dr. Reeves stepped forward, his eyes darting between Carl and the alien commander. "Commander, I believe I can modify this console to facilitate the process, but the risks—" "Do it," Carl interrupted, his decision made. As Reeves worked feverishly at the alien console, Carl and Zarkoth stood face to face, the fate of two civilizations hanging in the balance. The modified technology hummed to life, creating a shimmering field between them. "Are you ready?" Carl asked, his heart pounding. Zarkoth nodded solemnly. "Let us see the truth, human." They stepped forward simultaneously, the field enveloping them. The world around them faded away as their minds connected, thoughts and memories flooding between them in a torrent of shared consciousness. Carl gasped as he witnessed the Zanari rebellion against the ancient human empire. He felt the sting of oppression, the burning desire for freedom, and the anguish of a civilization torn apart. He saw the Zanari fleeing across the stars, carrying with them the scars of their past and the purpose to forge a new future. Simultaneously, Zarkoth experienced the struggles of modern humanity. He saw Earth, battered but unbroken, its people resilient in the face of countless challenges. He felt the wonder of human scientific discovery, the pain of their internal conflicts, and their unquenchable drive to explore the stars. As the connection faded, Carl and Zarkoth staggered back, their minds reeling from the intense experience. They stared at each other, a new understanding dawning in their eyes. Zarkoth was the first to speak, his voice hoarse with emotion. "We have both suffered. We have both endured." Carl nodded, still processing the flood of alien memories. "And we both have the capacity to grow, to change." A series of sharp beeps filled the chamber, as a Zanari officer rushed to a nearby console. "High Commander," the officer said urgently, "our reinforcement fleet awaits your orders to engage." Zarkoth held up a hand, silencing the officer. He turned to Carl, his expression resolute. "Enough blood has been shed. The cycle of vengeance ends today." He strode to the console, inputting a series of commands. "I am ordering our fleet to stand down." Relief washed over Carl as he watched the Zanari crew comply with their leader's unexpected order. He opened a channel to Earth, his voice steady as he delivered the news. "General Steele, Commander Sterling, this is Baker. The Zanari fleet is standing down. We're negotiating a ceasefire." As the immediate threat of conflict receded, Carl and Zarkoth began the delicate process of negotiation. They agreed to form a joint human-Zanari council to address past grievances and work towards peaceful coexistence. While Steele and Sterling coordinated efforts to secure Earth's defenses and manage the surrendering Zanari ground forces, Carl's mind raced with possibilities. He turned to Zarkoth, a bold plan forming in his mind. "We need to ensure lasting peace," Carl said, his eyes alight with purpose. "I propose we use the Celestial Vanguard and its gravitational resonance amplifier to create a network of stabilized wormholes throughout the solar system." Zarkoth tilted his head, intrigued. "For what purpose?" "To facilitate trade, cultural exchange, and rapid travel between our worlds," Carl explained. It would bind our civilizations together, making future conflict less likely. Dr. Reeves, who had been listening intently, stepped forward. Commander, the scientific implications of such a network are staggering. With the combination of our technologies, it might just be possible. Zarkoth nodded slowly, considering the proposal. A bold plan, human, but one with merit. Let us begin with a single wormhole between your Earth and Mars. As preparations for the first stable wormhole began, Carl turned his attention to the vast trove of data recovered from the Azanari flagship. The information revealed a galaxy teeming with advanced civilizations, some potentially friendly, others possibly hostile. Carl shared his findings with Zarkoth, both leaders recognizing the need for a united front. We must be prepared for these encounters, Carl said, his voice filled with conviction. I propose we create a joint human-Zanari space exploration and defense force. Zarkoth's eyes gleamed with interest. With the Celestial Vanguard as its flagship? Carl nodded, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Exactly. Our combined knowledge and technology could protect the solar system and push the boundaries of exploration. As they discussed the details of this new venture, alarms blared throughout the ship. A Zanari officer rushed into the chamber, his face contorted with concern. High Commander, Earth Commander, the officer addressed them both. Our sensors have detected a critical situation in the asteroid belt. Between Mars and Jupiter, the recent gravitational disturbances have destabilized several large asteroids. They're on a collision course with Earth and Mars. Carl and Zarkoth exchanged a grim look, both understanding the gravity of the situation. This would be the first true test of their newfound alliance. Prepare the Celestial Vanguard, Carl ordered, his voice filled with drive. We need to stop those asteroids before they can impact our worlds. As they rushed to prepare for the mission, Carl couldn't help but marvel at how quickly everything had changed. The threat of extinction had given way to an uneasy alliance, and now they faced their first challenge together. Boarding the Celestial Vanguard with a mixed crew of humans and Zanari, Carl felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. As the ship's engines roared to life, he knew that the success of this mission would set the tone for their future cooperation. The Celestial Vanguard accelerated towards the asteroid belt, its powerful engines pushing it to incredible speeds. Carl stood on the bridge, surrounded by human and Zanari crew members working in tandem. As the first of the dangerous asteroids came into view on the main screen, he steeled himself for the challenges ahead. All hands prepare for gravitational manipulation, Carl commanded, his voice carrying across the bridge. Let's show the universe what we can accomplish together. Together. Carl's words hung in the air as the Celestial Vanguard surged forward, its powerful engines propelling them toward the asteroid belt. As they approached, the main screen lit up with a dizzying array of rocky bodies hurtling through space. Carl's eyes widened as he took in the sheer magnitude of the threat. A cluster of massive asteroids stood out among the rest, their trajectories spelling doom for both Earth and Mars. Zarkoth, we need to focus on those larger bodies first, Carl said, pointing to the screen. They pose the most immediate danger. The Zanari commander nodded, his alien features set in stubborn persistence. Agreed. Initiating gravitational resonance amplifier. The ship hummed with energy as the advanced technology came to life. Carl felt a subtle shift in the artificial gravity as the amplifier began to exert its influence on the nearby asteroids. It's working, Dr. Reeves called out from his station, his fingers flying over the controls. The largest asteroid is already showing a 2% deviation from its original course. Carl allowed himself a moment of relief, but it was short-lived. As they continued to manipulate the gravitational fields around the asteroids, new complications arose. Commander Baker, a Zanari officer called out, her voice tense. The gravitational changes are causing unforeseen interactions between the asteroids. Their movements are becoming erratic and difficult to predict. Carl frowned, watching as the carefully calculated trajectories on the main screen began to shift unpredictably. Dr. Reeves, what's happening? The scientist's brow furrowed as he analyzed the incoming data. It's a cascade effect. The gravitational changes we're making are influencing not just our target asteroids, but the entire local system. Our current models can't keep up with the complexity. Zarkoth stepped forward, his eyes scanning the chaotic display. We need a new approach, or we risk making the situation worse. Carl nodded, his mind racing. Dr. Reeves, can you develop a new algorithm to account for these interactions? Reeves hesitated for a moment before responding. Possibly, but it would take time we don't have. Unless... He trailed off, glancing at the Zanari scientists working nearby. Unless what, Doctor? Carl prompted. Unless we combine our efforts, Reeves said, turning to address the Zanari team. Your computational models, combined with our understanding of gravitational dynamics, we might be able to create something new, something that can handle this level of complexity. For a moment, the bridge was silent, save for the low hum of the ship's systems. Then as one, the Zanari scientist moved to join Reeves at his station. Let's get to work, the lead Zanari scientist said, her multifaceted eyes gleaming with intellectual curiosity. As the combined team of human and Zanari experts worked feverishly to develop the new algorithm, Carl and Zarkoth focused on maintaining their current efforts to slow the asteroid's approach. Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently. Warning klaxons blared as the tactical officer shouted, "Impact on the starboard hull, minor damage to external sensors and communications array." Carl gripped his command chair, steadying himself. "Report!" "Smaller debris from the asteroid field," the officer replied. "Our shields deflected most of it, but some got through." Zarkoth turned to Carl, his expression grave. "We cannot afford to sustain more damage. Perhaps we should withdraw to a safer distance?" Carl shook his head. "No, we need to stay close to maintain maximum effectiveness of the gravitational resonance amplifier. Helm, adjust our course to minimize our profile. Engineering, I need those repairs done yesterday." As the crew scrambled to carry out his orders, Carl felt the weight of command pressing down on him. This mission wasn't just about saving Earth and Mars from destruction. It was the first true test of human and Zanari cooperation. The fate of their newfound alliance hung in the balance, along with billions of lives on 2 planets. "Commander Baker," Dr. Reeves called out, excitement evident in his voice. "We've done it. The new algorithm is ready for implementation." Carl allowed himself a small smile. "Excellent work, all of you. Let's put it to the test." As the new program came online, the main screen's chaotic display began to stabilize. The erratic movements of the asteroid smoothed out, becoming more predictable and manageable. "It's working," Zarkoth said, a note of awe in his alien voice. "The asteroid trajectories are responding precisely as calculated." For the next several hours, the crew of the Celestial Vanguard worked tirelessly, guiding the massive space rocks away from their collision course with Earth and Mars. It was grueling, precision work, requiring constant adjustments and recalculations. Just as it seemed they had the situation under control, a priority transmission came through from Earth. General Steele's holographic image appeared on the bridge, his face etched with concern. "Baker, we've got a situation down here," Steele began without preamble. "The gravitational disturbances from your asteroid deflection have triggered a dormant volcanic system. We're looking at potential eruptions that could threaten millions." Carl felt his heart sink. They had prevented one disaster, only to inadvertently cause another. He turned to Zarkoth, seeing his own concern mirrored in the alien commander's eyes. "We need a solution. Fast," Carl said, his mind already racing through possibilities. "And I have a feeling it's going to take both our species working together to find one." As Carl prepared to address this new crisis, he couldn't help but wonder what other challenges awaited them. The asteroid field had been their first test, but he suspected it was only the beginning of a much larger journey, one that would push the limits of their newfound alliance and perhaps change the fate of both their civilizations forever. As Carl prepared to address the volcanic crisis on Earth, a priority transmission from Mission Control interrupted his thoughts. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing General Steele's grim expression. "Baker, we need you and the Celestial Vanguard back on Earth immediately," Steele said, his voice tense. "The situation here has evolved." Carl exchanged a quick glance with Zarkoth. "Understood, General. We're on our way." The Celestial Vanguard's engines roared to life, propelling the ship back toward Earth at breakneck speed. As they approached, Carl's eyes widened at the sight of the planet. Plumes of ash and smoke rose from several locations, evidence of the volcanic activity triggered by their asteroid deflection efforts. Upon landing, Carl and his crew were immediately escorted to a high-security briefing room. The tension in the air was palpable as they entered, finding themselves face-to-face with not only General Steele, but also a stern-faced man Carl recognized as Admiral Hawthorne, leader of the hardline military faction. "Commander Baker," Hawthorne said, his voice cold, "your actions have put Earth at risk. It's time we reassess the command structure of this operation." Before Carl could respond, Dr. Reeves burst into the room, his face flushed with excitement. "Commanders, you need to see this!" He activated a holographic display, showing a pulsating energy signature at the edge of the solar system. "We've detected an anomalous signal. It bears similarities to both human and Zanari technology, but it's older, much older." The room fell silent as the implication sank in. Carl's mind raced, connecting the dots. An ancient human Zanari outpost? From before the original conflict? Zarkoth leaned forward, his alien eyes fixed on the display. If this is true, it could provide answers to questions both our species have long sought. Admiral Hawthorne banged his hand on the table. "Enough! We can't afford to chase ghosts when Earth is in crisis. The Celestial Vanguard and its technology must be placed under strict military control. We can't risk such powerful weapons in the hands of former enemies." Carl felt his jaw clench. "With all due respect, Admiral, cooperation is our best chance for survival. Dividing our forces now would be a mistake." As the argument heated up, Carl noticed Captain Marcus Vega, Hawthorne's protege, watching the exchange with keen interest. An idea began to form in Carl's mind. "I propose a compromise," Carl said, his voice cutting through the tension. "We'll send a joint human Zanari expedition to investigate the signal. Admiral, you can send Captain Vega to represent Earth's military interests. Meanwhile, Zarkoth can remain here to oversee the integration of our technologies and improve relations." Hawthorne's eyes narrowed, but he nodded slowly. "Acceptable, but I warn you, Baker, any sign of betrayal and—" His words were cut off by an urgent message from Mars. Commander Sterling's face appeared on the screen, her expression a mix of excitement and concern. "Earth Command, we've made a discovery," Sterling reported. "An ancient underground complex beneath Olympus Mons. Initial scans show, well, you need to see this for yourselves." The room erupted into a flurry of activity as data streamed in from Mars. Dr. Reeves's eyes widened as he analyzed the information. "This energy signature, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. It could revolutionize our space exploration capabilities." Carl turned to Zarkoth, their eyes meeting in silent understanding. They needed to act fast. "Dr. Reeves, I want you to lead a team to Mars," Carl ordered. "Investigate this complex and report back. Zarkoth, can you spare some of your scientists to assist?" The Zanari commander nodded. "Of course, this discovery could benefit us all." As preparations for both missions began, Carl pulled Zarkoth aside. "We need a contingency plan," he said in a low voice. "If either mission encounters something beyond our capabilities—" Zarkoth's expression was grim. "We have a network of dormant beacons throughout the solar system. If activated, they could create a temporary defensive barrier, but using them would alert every spacefaring race in the galaxy to our presence." Carl nodded, the weight of responsibility settling heavily on his shoulders. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." As the Celestial Vanguard prepared to depart Earth's orbit, long-range sensors lit up with multiple alerts. Carl rushed to the bridge, his heart pounding. "Report!" he barked. The tactical officer's voice was tense. "Multiple unidentified objects entering the solar system, sir. They're moving at incredible speeds, on an intercept course with both us and Mars." Carl's mind raced. Had their actions drawn the attention of unknown forces, the Galactic Federation mentioned in the Zanari data? As he opened his mouth to issue orders, Arya's calm voice filled the bridge. "Commander, I'm detecting encoded transmissions from the approaching objects. The language is unknown, but there are similarities to both ancient human and Zanari communication protocols." Carl's eyes met Captain Vega's, then swept across the bridge, taking in the mix of human and Zanari crew members. In that moment, he knew the choice he had to make. "All hands, battle stations," Carl commanded, his voice steady. "But keep weapons powered down. Area, begin attempts to decode those transmissions. Let's try to talk before we fight." As the crew sprang into action, Carl activated the ship-wide communication system. "Attention all personnel, this is Commander Baker. We stand at a crossroads, facing an unknown force that could be friend or foe. Our actions in the next few hours may well determine the fate of Earth, Mars, and our entire solar system. But remember this, we are no longer just humans or Zanari. We are the defenders of our shared home. Whatever comes, we face it together." The bridge fell silent as Carl's words sank in. Then as one, the crew turned back to their stations, human and Zanari working side by side with renewed purpose. As the unidentified objects drew closer, Carl stared out at the vast expanse of space, his mind racing with possibilities. Whatever these new entities were, whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew that the true test of the human-Zanari alliance was just beginning. As Carl prepared to address the crew, the ship's sensors erupted with a cacophony of alerts. "Multiple unidentified objects entering the solar system, sir," the tactical officer reported, her fingers flying over the holographic interface. "They're moving at incredible speeds, on an intercept course with both us and Mars." Carl's heart raced as he processed this new development. He glanced at Captain Vega, then at the mix of human and Zanari crew members on the bridge. In that moment, he knew the choice he had to make. "All hands, battle stations," Carl commanded, his voice steady. "But keep weapons powered down. Area, begin attempts to decode those transmissions. Let's try to talk before we fight." As the crew sprang into action, Carl activated the ship-wide communication system. "Attention all personnel, this is Commander Baker. We stand at a crossroads, facing an unknown force that could be friend or foe. Our actions in the next few hours may well determine the fate of Earth, Mars, and our entire solar system. But remember this, we are no longer just humans or Zanari. We are the defenders of our shared home. Whatever comes, we face it together." The bridge fell silent as Carl's words sank in. Then as one, the crew turned back to their stations, human and Zanari working side by side with renewed purpose. Hours passed as the celestial vanguard maintained its position, a lone sentinel between Earth and the approaching fleet. The tension on the bridge was palpable, broken only by the occasional status update from various stations. Suddenly, Arya's calm voice filled the bridge. "Commander, I've made a breakthrough in decoding the transmissions. The language bears similarities to both ancient human and Zanari communication protocols." Carl leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the main view screen. "What have you learned, Arya?" "The vessels belong to an advanced species known as the Etherian Collective," Arya reported. "They claim to be representatives of the Galactic Federation mentioned in the recovered Zanari data." The revelation sent a ripple of murmurs through the bridge crew. Carl's mind raced with the implications. He turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel to Earth Command. We need to coordinate our response." As the holographic display flickered to life, revealing General Steele's stern visage, Carl quickly briefed him on the situation. "Sir, I recommend we postpone the expedition to investigate the mysterious signal. Our priority should be presenting a unified front to these Etherians." Steele nodded grimly. "Agreed, Commander, but be advised Admiral Hawthorne has taken it upon himself to mobilize Earth's remaining military forces. He's acting without authorization from the Joint Council." Carl felt a surge of frustration. "Understood, sir. I'll do what I can to manage the situation from here." As the transmission ended, Carl turned to Zarkoth. "We need your help. Can you activate the Zanari communication relays throughout the solar system? It might help ease tensions if we demonstrate our ability to coordinate." Zarkoth nodded, his alien features set with purpose. "Consider it done, Commander." As the Etherian fleet entered the outer reaches of the solar system, Carl's comm link buzzed with an urgent transmission from Mars. Dr. Reeves's excited face appeared on the small screen. "Commander, we've made a breakthrough," Reeves exclaimed. "We've activated part of the ancient complex beneath Olympus Mons. It's revealed a vast archive of historical data. You won't believe this, but it suggests the Etherians were once allies of the ancient human Zaneri civilization. Carl's mind whirled with the possibilities this information presented. Excellent work, Doctor. Send us everything you've got. We might be able to use this to our advantage. With this crucial information in hand, Carl formulated a plan. He turned to his communications officer. Prepare a message for broadcast to the Etherian fleet. Incorporate elements of the ancient alliance we've just discovered. Let's see if we can jog their memory. As the carefully crafted message was transmitted, the effect was immediate. The Etherian fleet slowed its approach, and a new transmission came through. Celestial Vanguard, this is High Arbiter Xylos of the Etherian Collective. A melodious voice resonated through the bridge. Your message intrigues us. We request a face-to-face meeting with your leaders. Carl exchanged glances with his officers before responding. High Arbiter, we would be honored. I will lead a small delegation to your flagship, if that is acceptable. As preparations for the meeting began, Carl pulled Captain Vega aside. I want you with me on this mission, Captain. It's important we present a united front. Vega nodded, his expression unreadable. Of course, Commander. I'll be ready. As Carl's team prepared to board the shuttle that would take them to the Etherian flagship, Aria's voice cut through the bustle of activity. Commander, I'm detecting a surge of energy from the mysterious signal at the edge of the solar system. Its strength has increased exponentially. Carl paused, his mind racing with this new complication. After a moment's consideration, he turned to Commander Sterling. Take a scout ship and investigate that signal. Use the miniaturized gravitational resonance amplifier if you need to. But be careful. We don't know what you might find out there. As Sterling's team departed and Carl's shuttle launched towards the Etherian flagship, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something monumental. The fate of two civilizations, perhaps even the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. And as the enormous, otherworldly form of the Etherian vessel loomed before them, Carl steeled himself for what promised to be the most important diplomatic mission of his life. As the shuttle docked with the Etherian flagship, Carl took a deep breath, steeling himself for the diplomatic challenge ahead. The meeting with High Arbiter Xylos had barely begun when alarms blared throughout the ship. A holographic display materialized, showing a massive energy surge at the edge of the solar system. The ancient superweapon station, Carl breathed, his mind racing. It's activating. High Arbiter Xylos, a being of shimmering energy contained within an ornate exosuit, turned to face Carl. This changes everything, the Etherian leader intoned. Recognizing the potential catastrophe, Carl quickly formulated a plan. High Arbiter, I propose we form a joint task force to investigate and secure the station. We can pool our resources and expertise to address this threat together. Xylos considered for a moment, the lights within the exosuit pulsing rhythmically. An intriguing proposal, Commander Baker. The opportunity to access such long-lost technology is tempting. Carl pressed his advantage. We already have a team at the station. Your most skilled technicians and scientists could join them immediately. After a brief consultation with Etherian advisors, Xylos agreed. Very well. We shall dispatch our finest minds to join your team. As arrangements were made, Carl's comm link buzzed with an urgent transmission from Mars. Dr. Reeves's face appeared, his expression a mix of excitement and fear. Commander, we've made a breakthrough in the ancient complex's database, Reeves reported. There's information about a cosmic threat called the Void Devourers. They're described as an unstoppable force that consumes entire star systems. Carl's blood ran cold as Reeves continued. The superweapon station was created as a last resort against this threat, but the Void Devourers vanished before it could be used. Before Carl could fully process this information, the Etherian flagship's sensors erupted with new alerts. A massive anomaly had appeared at the edge of the solar system, beyond Pluto's orbit. High Arbiter Xylos studied the readings, the lights of the exosuit flickering rapidly. This energy signature, it matches the descriptions in your ancient records. Carl's mind raced, piecing together a strategy. He turned to Xylos. High Arbiter, we need to move your fleet into defensive positions around Earth and Mars. It's our best chance to protect both planets. Xylos nodded, immediately issuing orders to the Etherian fleet. Carl activated his comm link, connecting with the Celestial Vanguard. This is Commander Baker. Move to coordinate with the Etherian fleet. We're taking point on this operation. As the combined fleet maneuvered into position, Carl received word that Admiral Hawthorne had mobilized Earth's remaining military assets. Despite their past differences, the Admiral recognized the need for unified action in the face of this cosmic threat. Zarkoth's voice came through the comm link next. Commander, I've activated our hidden defense platforms. They're now integrated into the system's defensive network. Carl allowed himself a small smile. The Zanari's secret preparations, once a source of tension, now served to strengthen their alliance. A new alert drew Carl's attention back to the main display. Commander Sterling's team at the ancient station had made a startling discovery. The superweapon wasn't just a defensive tool, it could create stable wormholes, potentially allowing for the evacuation of entire planets. As Carl absorbed this information, he realized they now faced two possible strategies: stand and fight using the superweapon, or attempt a mass evacuation of Earth and Mars. Both options carried immense risks. After a moment's contemplation, Carl made his decision. He turned to High Arbiter Xylos and opened a channel to the human Zanari Council. I have a proposal, he began, outlining his plan for a small, elite strike force led by the Celestial Vanguard. We'll gather crucial intelligence and search for a weakness in the Void Devourers, Carl explained. The Celestial Vanguard, enhanced with Etherian technology and the knowledge from the ancient station, is our best shot at this. As discussions of the plan continued, a shockwave of fear rippled through the solar system. The Void Devourer's anomaly had expanded, engulfing Pluto. The distant world's destruction made the threat terrifyingly real to billions of people. With time running out, Carl prepared to embark on his dangerous mission. He assembled a diverse crew for the Celestial Vanguard, including top human and Zanari officers, and an Etherian advisor named Lyrax. As final preparations were made, Carl addressed his crew on the bridge of the Celestial Vanguard. What we do here will determine the fate of not just Earth, but potentially all galactic civilization. We carry the hopes of billions with us. The ship's enhanced engines roared to life, propelling them away from the defensive fleet and towards the growing anomaly at the edge of the solar system. As they approached, the Void Devourer's presence became palpable, a creeping dread that seemed to seep into the very fabric of space itself. On the main view screen, the anomaly loomed, a swirling vortex of impossible colors and shapes that hurt the eyes to look at directly. Carl gripped the arms of his command chair, his voice steady as he gave the order. Take us in. The Celestial Vanguard plunged into the unknown, carrying with it the fragile alliance of 3 civilizations and the last, desperate hope of countless worlds. As the ship was engulfed by the swirling chaos, Carl knew that their true test was only beginning. Beginning only to begin. As the Celestial Vanguard plunged deeper into the swirling chaos of the anomaly, the ship's sensors erupted with new alerts. Captain Vega's voice cut through the tension on the bridge. Commander, multiple contacts detected. They're emerging from the main mass. Carl leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the main view screen. A swarm of smaller entities, each roughly the size of a small asteroid, spread out from the Void Devourer's core. They moved with eerie precision, forming a defensive formation around the anomaly. Evasive maneuvers, Carl ordered, his voice steady despite the mounting pressure. Maintain our course towards the heart of the anomaly. The Celestial Vanguard's enhanced engines roared to life, the ship weaving through the encroaching swarm with remarkable agility. Lyrax, the Etherian advisor, stepped forward, her exosuit pulsing with intense light. These are Void Scouts, she explained, her melodious voice tinged with urgency. Autonomous units sent to assess potential threats and targets. Carl nodded, his mind racing. Can we target them? Lyrax interfaced with the ship's systems, her knowledge from the ancient station proving invaluable. Calibrating weapons now, we've identified potential weak points in their structure. The human Zanari crew worked in perfect synchronization, their recent alliance proving its worth in the face of this cosmic threat. As the Celestial Vanguard engaged the Void Scouts, Space around them lit up with energy discharges and explosions. Suddenly, Carl's comm link crackled to life. Admiral Hawthorne's face appeared on the small screen, his expression grim. "Baker, we've got a situation. Several Void Scouts have bypassed our outer defensive line. They're heading straight for Mars and Earth." Carl's lips pursed. "What are our options, Admiral?" "We can activate the ancient defense platforms we found in the Martian complex," Hawthorne replied. "But it's risky. It could draw more attention from the Void Devourers." Carl weighed the immediate threat against the potential consequences. After a moment's consideration, he made his decision. "Do it, Admiral. Activate the Martian defenses, and tell Zarkoth to prepare the hidden Zanari platforms around Earth. We may need them soon." As Hawthorne acknowledged the order, Carl turned his attention back to the battle at hand. The Celestial Vanguard's enhanced shields held against the Void Scouts' onslaught, but the constant barrage was taking its toll on the ship's energy reserves. "Deploy the probes," Carl commanded. "Let's see what we can learn about these things." A series of newly developed probes shot out from the Celestial Vanguard, their design a testament to the combined ingenuity of humans, Zanari, and Etherians. They penetrated deep into the anomaly, transmitting data back to the ship. As the information flooded in, Carl's eyes widened. "This can't be right," he muttered. Lyrax studied the data, her exosuit pulsing rapidly. "It's true, Commander. The Void Devourers aren't a single entity. They're a collective of smaller, interconnected organisms working in perfect harmony." This revelation sparked an idea in Carl's mind. He turned to his chief engineer. "Prepare the gravitational resonance amplifier. We're going to create localized gravitational distortions within their collective." "Sir," the engineer hesitated, "that would require us to get dangerously close to the heart of the anomaly." "I'm aware of the risks," Carl replied, his voice firm, "but it may be our only chance to disrupt their cohesion and communication." As the crew prepared to execute this daring plan, a massive energy surge erupted from the center of the Void Devourer collective. A colossal tendril of dark energy reached out towards the solar system with frightening speed. "It's heading for the ancient superweapon station," Lyrax announced, her voice filled with dread. Carl's mind raced, calculating trajectories and possibilities in split seconds. He knew there was only one option. "All hands brace for impact," he ordered. "We're intercepting that tendril." The Celestial Vanguard's engines flared to life, pushing the ship to its limits as it maneuvered into the path of the dark energy tendril. Carl activated the gravitational resonance amplifier at full capacity, creating a massive gravitational field around the ship. "Brace for impact!" Carl shouted, gripping his command chair. The collision was spectacular. The Celestial Vanguard's enhanced shields strained against the immense power of the tendril, but the gravitational field managed to deflect the bulk of its energy. The ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring as systems overloaded. In the aftermath of the collision, the Celestial Vanguard spun out of control, its main power failing. Emergency lights bathed the bridge in an eerie red glow as the crew fought to regain control of their vessel. "Damage report," Carl called out, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Multiple systems offline, sir," came the response. "Propulsion, weapons, and long-range communications are down. We're running on emergency power." As the ship stabilized, Carl saw that their heroic action had weakened the dark energy tendril significantly. It dissipated before reaching the ancient station, buying crucial time for the solar system's defenses. But the victory came at a steep price. The Celestial Vanguard now drifted, vulnerable and isolated, at the edge of the anomaly. Surrounded by the very enemy they came to study and combat, Carl and his crew faced a daunting challenge. "Begin emergency repairs immediately," Carl ordered, his mind already formulating their next move. "We need to get communications back online and reestablish contact with Earth." As the crew sprang into action, Carl gazed out at the swirling chaos of the anomaly. The fate of the mission, and potentially the entire solar system, now hung in the balance. With the Void Devourers regrouping for their next assault, the race against time had begun. The Celestial Vanguard's emergency systems flickered as Carl and his crew worked tirelessly to restore power. The ship's hull creaked and groaned, still reeling from the impact with the dark energy tendril. Status report, Carl called out, his voice steady despite the dire circumstances. Main powers still offline, Commander, replied Lieutenant Chen, her fingers flying over a console. We're running on auxiliary systems, but they won't last long. Carl nodded, his mind racing. Divide into teams. Chen, you're on propulsion. Caxolith, take weapons. I'll oversee communications. As the crew dispersed, Caxolith, the Zanari engineer, approached Carl. Commander, there's something you should see. Carl followed Caxolith to a viewport where the Zanari pointed to the ship's outer hull. A faint, shimmering energy danced across the surface. The collision with the tendril, Caxolith explained. It seems to have imbued our hull with some of the Void Devourer's energy signature. Carl's eyes widened as he grasped the implications. We're camouflaged. Precisely, Caxolith confirmed. It won't last forever, but it buys us time for repairs. As they worked, Carl's comlink crackled to life. Admiral Hawthorne's voice came through, distorted but audible. Baker, do you read? Earth's defenses are online. Zarkoth's platforms are integrated into our grid. Copy that, Admiral, Carl responded. We're effecting repairs now. Any word from the ancient station? Affirmative, Hawthorne replied. Vega's team made a breakthrough. They've identified a weakness in the Void Devourer's physiology. There's a central node controlling the entire collective. Carl's pulse quickened. If we can target that node, we might have a chance, Hawthorne finished. But Baker, there's more. The Void Devourers are advancing on the inner system. We're detecting increased scout activity near our defensive perimeter. Before Carl could respond, a proximity alert blared through the ship. Lieutenant Chen's voice rang out. Unknown object approaching, sir. Carl rushed to the bridge, his heart pounding. The view screen showed a small, sleek vessel rapidly closing in on their position. It's not a Void Scout, Lyrax announced, her exosuit pulsing with activity. It's Etherian. The tension on the bridge eased slightly as they recognized the rescue pod sent by High Arbiter Xylos. As it docked with the Celestial Vanguard, Carl was surprised to see not only the expected repair supplies, but also a familiar face emerge from the pod. Dr. Reeves, Carl exclaimed as Eleanor Reeves, the expert in ancient technology, stepped onto the bridge. Commander Baker, she greeted him with a nod. I couldn't let you have all the fun out here. With Dr. Reeves' expertise and the Etherian supplies, repairs to the Celestial Vanguard accelerated rapidly. As systems came back online, Carl reviewed the intelligence data from Earth. The tendril's impact created a weak point in the Void Devourer's outer shell, Carl mused, studying the sensor data. If we could penetrate that area, we might be able to reach the central node, Dr. Reeves finished, her eyes gleaming with possibility. Carl's mind raced, formulating a plan. He turned to his crew, perseverance etched on his face. Prepare a series of unmanned probes. We'll equip them with miniaturized gravitational resonance amplifiers. As the crew worked, Carl received another transmission from Earth. General Steele's face appeared on the screen, looking grim but resolute. Commander, we've adapted some of the ancient Martian tech, Steele reported. We've got a prototype energy weapon that can generate anti-void beams. It's powerful, but it'll drain our defenses if we use it. Carl weighed the options carefully. The weapon could provide crucial support, but using it might leave Earth vulnerable if their mission failed. Thank you, General, Carl replied. Hold that in reserve for now. We'll proceed with our stealth approach first. With the Celestial Vanguard systems at 70% capacity, Carl knew they couldn't wait any longer. Sensors detected a massive energy buildup within the Void Devourer collective, a clear sign of an impending assault on the solar system. All hands, prepare for departure, Carl announced over the ship-wide comm. We're going in. The Celestial Vanguard's engines hummed to life as they positioned themselves at the edge of the weakened section of the Void Devourer anomaly. Carl looked around at his crew, human, Zanari, and Etherian alike, united in their mission to save not just Earth, but countless worlds beyond. Launch probes, Carl ordered, his voice calm and steady. As the unmanned probes shot out ahead of them, Carl gripped his command chair. The view screen showed the swirling chaos of the anomaly, a maelstrom of impossible colors and shapes that seemed to defy the laws of physics. "Take us in," Carl commanded. "Nice and easy." The Celestial Vanguard glided forward, its energy-imbued hull shimmering as it penetrated the outer layer of the Void Devourer anomaly. As they entered the swirling mass, the ship's sensors struggled to make sense of their surroundings. "Maintain course," Carl instructed, his eyes fixed on the readings. "Keep scanning for that central node." As they pushed deeper into the heart of the Void Devourer collective, the crew of the Celestial Vanguard knew that the fate of the solar system, and perhaps the entire galaxy, rested on their shoulders. The true test of their skills, technology, and newfound alliance was only beginning. Beginning was at hand. The Celestial Vanguard's engines roared to life, propelling the ship forward into the swirling chaos of the Void Devourer anomaly. As they penetrated the outer layers, the ship's newly acquired energy signature camouflage held true. The Void Scouts, mere meters away, seemed oblivious to their presence. Carl's grip on his command chair tightened as he watched the swirling patterns of impossible colors pass by on the interface. "Launch probes," Carl ordered, his voice steady despite the tension. A series of unmanned probes shot out from the Celestial Vanguard, each equipped with a miniaturized gravitational resonance amplifier. They spread out in a predetermined pattern, creating a network of localized gravitational distortions that served as both decoys and data-gathering nodes. The ship pushed deeper into the anomaly, its sensors struggling to make sense of the alien environment. Dr. Reeves hunched over her console, her brow furrowed in concentration as she analyzed the incoming data. "Commander," she called out, her eyes never leaving the screen, "I'm detecting a pattern in the energy fluctuations. It's subtle, but it's there." Carl moved to her side, studying the complex readouts. "What does it mean?" "I believe these fluctuations are guiding us," Reeves explained, her fingers flying over the controls. "They're leading us towards the central coordination node of the collective." Carl nodded, his mind racing with the implications. "Lieutenant Chen, adjust our course to follow Dr. Reeves's readings." As they ventured further, the density of Void Scouts increased dramatically. The ship's stealth camouflage began to flicker and fade under the intense energy fields permeating the anomaly's interior. Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. The stealth field collapsed entirely, leaving the Celestial Vanguard exposed. "Multiple Void Scouts incoming!" Lyrax shouted, her exosuit pulsing rapidly with alarming patterns. Carl's voice rang out clear and decisive. "Divert all power to shields and weapons. Prepare for evasive maneuvers." The ship lurched as Chen executed a series of intricate dodges, narrowly avoiding the first wave of attacks from the Void Scouts. The space around them erupted into chaos as the Celestial Vanguard returned fire, its advanced weaponry tearing through the smaller enemy vessels. "The probes, Commander," Caxolith called out. "We can use them as a defensive screen." Carl nodded his approval, and Caxolith activated the gravitational resonance amplifiers on the unmanned probes. The resulting gravitational shockwaves rippled through space, disrupting the Void Scouts' formation and creating temporary gaps in their defense. "There," Dr. Reeves shouted, pointing at the main view screen. "The central node." Through the chaos of the battle, a massive, pulsating structure came into view. Dark energy tendrils writhed around it, creating a nightmarish, ever-shifting barrier. "Prepare the main gravitational resonance amplifier," Carl ordered. "We'll only get one shot at this." As the Celestial Vanguard maneuvered into firing position, a colossal tendril of dark energy lashed out, striking the ship's hull with devastating force. The impact sent crew members flying across the bridge as systems failed in cascading waves of destruction. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing the bridge in an eerie red glow. Carl pulled himself up, ignoring the taste of blood in his mouth. "Damage report!" "Main power's offline," Chen reported, her voice strained. "We're running on emergency systems. Weapons and propulsion are down." Carl's mind raced, assessing their dire situation. They were so close to their objective, yet now found themselves drifting helplessly near the central node. The mission, Earth's last hope against the Void Devourers, teetered on the brink of failure. In that moment of crisis, a plan formed in Carl's mind. It was desperate, perhaps even suicidal, but it was their only remaining option. "Listen up," he addressed his crew, his voice grave but unwavering. I'm ordering the evacuation of all non-essential personnel to the Etherian rescue pod. It can return to Earth with our data. Protests immediately erupted, but Carl silenced them with a raised hand. This isn't up for debate. We have one last card to play, and I need volunteers to see it through. Dr. Reeves stepped forward without hesitation. I'm staying, Commander. Caxilith joined her, his alien features set with perseverance. As am I. Carl nodded, a mix of pride and sorrow in his eyes. As the evacuation proceeded, he outlined his plan to the remaining crew. They would use the ship's last reserves of power to set a collision course with the central node. By detonating the reactor in conjunction with the gravitational resonance amplifier, they hoped to destabilize the entire Void Devourer collective. As the rescue pod detached, carrying the majority of the crew to safety, Carl took his place at the helm. The space around them swarmed with Void scouts, seemingly aware of the threat the damaged ship still posed. Initiating reactor overload sequence, Caxilith reported, his voice steady despite the gravity of their situation. The celestial vanguard lurched forward, pushing through the maelstrom of dark energy tendrils that lashed out at them. The ship's hull groaned under the immense gravitational forces, threatening to tear apart at any moment. 30 seconds to impact, Dr. Reeves called out, her eyes fixed on the rapidly approaching central node. Carl activated the ship's communication system one last time, transmitting a final message to Earth. He explained their plan and sent all the data they had gathered on the Void Devourers, hoping it would aid in the defense of their homeworld. As the celestial vanguard plunged towards its target, Carl gripped the controls tightly, his eyes never leaving the pulsating mass of the central node. The ship shuddered violently, systems failing all around them as they penetrated the outer layers of the structure. "Brace for impact," Carl shouted, as the world around them dissolved into blinding light. The combined force of the ship's reactor and the gravitational resonance amplifier erupted at the heart of the Void Devourer anomaly. The resulting explosion sent shockwaves rippling through the entire collective, its cohesion faltering as sections began to collapse in on themselves. But as the dust settled and the anomaly began to disintegrate, a new threat emerged. A massive fragment of the destabilized Void Devourer entity, driven by the momentum of the explosion, hurtled directly towards Earth. On the planet's surface, Admiral Hawthorne and General Steele watched with growing horror as their sensors detected the approaching cosmic missile. The sacrificial action of Carl and his crew had bought them time, but the final battle for Earth's survival was about to begin. With their most advanced ship destroyed and their greatest heroes presumably lost, Earth's defenders faced an impossible choice. They had to find a way to stop the incoming threat or watch helplessly as their world was obliterated. The prototype energy weapon, based on ancient Martian technology, remained their last, desperate hope. As they prepared to make their stand, the question hung heavy in the air. Would the sacrifice of the Celestial Vanguard be enough to save humanity? Humanity be enough to save Earth from total annihilation? The answer lay in the hands of those left to defend their home. Admiral Hawthorne's voice crackled over the emergency broadcast system, her tone urgent but controlled. "All defense personnel, this is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Massive Void Devourer fragment inbound. All stations, prepare for immediate action." The global defense grid hummed to life as Zenari platforms and human military assets formed a multi-layered shield around the planet. General Steele oversaw the final preparations for the prototype anti-void energy weapon, its massive barrel aimed skyward. "Power levels at 95% and rising," a technician reported, his fingers flying over the controls. Steele nodded grimly. "Keep it charged. We'll only get one shot at this." Suddenly, a transmission cut through the tense atmosphere of the command center. "Earth Defense Command, this is Etherian Rescue Pod, ARK-7. We have critical data from the Celestial Vanguard mission." Admiral Hawthorne's eyes widened. "Patch them through immediately." The data streamed in, filling the command center's screens with a wealth of information on the Void Devourer's internal structure and energy patterns. Dr. Reeves's voice, tinny but clear, explained their findings. "The entity has specific frequency vulnerabilities," she said. "If we can target these weak points, we might be able to destabilize it further. Hawthorne turned to Zarkoth, the Zanari liaison. Can we reconfigure the defense platforms to emit these frequencies? Zarkoth's multifaceted eyes glimmered. It's possible, but it will take time. Time we don't have, Steele muttered, but he gave the order nonetheless. As Earth's defenders worked feverishly to implement the new strategy, the Void Devourer fragment entered the outer solar system. The reconfigured Zanari platforms fired, their energy beams striking the entity with pinpoint accuracy. Visible fissures began to form on its surface, spreading like cracks in an eggshell. On Mars, Captain Marcus Vega stood before the ancient superweapon station's control panel, sweat beading on his brow. "Come on, you old beast," he muttered, inputting a complex sequence of commands. With a low rumble that shook the Martian soil, the station awakened. A shimmering field of energy expanded outward, reaching towards the approaching threat. The Void Devourer fragment's approach slowed, caught in the grip of the ancient technology's gravitational manipulation. Back on Earth, Dr. Alexei Kuznetsov burst into General Steele's office, clutching a tablet. "General, we have a plan," he said, his accent thick with excitement. "We can use modified gravitational resonance amplifiers to create a web around Earth. It could break the entity into smaller pieces." Steele studied the proposal, his brow furrowed. After a tense moment, he nodded. "Do it. Get every rocket we have in the air. I want that satellite network operational yesterday." As the world mobilized to deploy Dr. Kuznetsov's satellite network, long-range sensors picked up an anomalous energy signature near the remains of Pluto. A small ship, unlike anything they'd seen before, emerged from the debris field. "This is Commander Carl Baker of the Phoenix," a familiar voice transmitted. "We've got a few tricks up our sleeve, and we're coming in hot." A cheer erupted in the command center. Carl quickly briefed them on the Phoenix's unique properties and his plan to guide the Void Devourer fragment into the sun. As Carl and his crew raced towards the approaching threat, Earth's defenses unleashed their full fury. The Zanari platforms continued their precision strikes, further fracturing the entity. Dr. Kuznetsov's satellite network came online, its web of gravitational distortions beginning to tear the fragment apart. "Energy levels at maximum," the weapon technician called out. "Anti-void cannon ready to fire." General Steele took a deep breath. "Fire!" The prototype weapon discharged, a blinding beam of energy lancing up into the sky. It struck the largest remaining chunk of the Void Devourer entity, resulting in a cataclysmic explosion that lit up the entire solar system. In the chaos of the assault, the Phoenix streaked towards the heart of the fragmented entity. Inside the ship's cockpit, Carl gripped the controls, his face a mask of concentration. "Approaching optimal entry point," Dr. Reeves reported, her eyes fixed on the sensor readouts. Carl nodded. "Here goes nothing." The Phoenix plunged into the swirling mass of the Void Devourer fragment. Tendrils of dark energy lashed at the ship's hull, but its unique properties held firm. Carl felt the entity's pull, its alien consciousness attempting to overwhelm him. "Steady," he muttered, both to himself and his crew. "We've got this." Using the Phoenix's absorbed Void Devourer properties, Carl began to exert influence over the entity's trajectory. Slowly, agonizingly, the massive fragment began to veer off its collision course with Earth. On the planet's surface, billions watched with breathless expectation as the combined might of humanity's defenses and one small ship fought to alter the course of cosmic destruction. The fragment's new trajectory became clear. It was heading towards the sun. But the battle was far from won. As they approached the sun's immense gravitational field, Carl and his crew found themselves locked in a desperate struggle to maintain control. The Void Devourer entity, though weakened, fought back with alien tenacity. Sweat poured down Carl's face as he wrestled with the controls. "We're losing our grip," he called out. "Caxilith, I need more power to the gravitational stabilizers." The Zanari engineer's hands flew over his console. "I'm giving it all we've got, Commander." As the Phoenix neared the sun's corona, the heat inside the cockpit became nearly unbearable. Warning alarms blared as systems began to fail under the immense stress. "Hull integrity at 60% and falling," Dr. Reeves reported, her voice strained. Carl gritted his teeth, pushing both the ship and himself to their limits. The fate of Earth hung in the balance as the Phoenix fought to guide its deadly cargo into the sun's fiery embrace. Embrace. The Phoenix's hull groaned under the immense pressure, its hybrid systems straining to maintain control over the massive Void Devourer fragment. Carl's knuckles turned white as he gripped the controls, sweat streaming down his face. "We're losing our grip," he shouted over the blaring alarms. "Caxolith, divert all remaining power to the gravitational stabilizers." The Zanari engineer's multi-limbed form blurred across the control panel. "Already at maximum capacity, Commander. The systems can't take much more of this." Dr. Reeves's voice cut through the chaos. "Hull integrity down to 35%. We're running out of options." As they neared the sun's corona, the cockpit temperature soared to unbearable levels. Warning lights flashed across every console, signaling cascading system failures. Carl's mind raced, weighing their dwindling options. The Void Devourer fragment, though weakened, was adapting to their influence, resisting their attempts to guide it into the sun. He knew they couldn't maintain this deadlock much longer. "All right, listen up," Carl said, his voice steady despite the dire circumstances. "We're initiating a controlled overload of our hybrid systems. It's our only shot at pushing this thing into the sun." "Commander, that'll leave us stranded," Dr. Reeves protested. "Better stranded than vaporized," Carl replied grimly. "Caxolith, begin the overload sequence." The Zanari hesitated for a split second before complying. "Initiating overload. Brace yourselves." Energy surged through the Phoenix, its hull vibrating with barely held back power. Carl felt the ship bucking against his control, like a wild animal straining against its reins. "Now!" Carl roared, slamming his hand down on the release mechanism. A blinding pulse of energy erupted from the Phoenix, engulfing the Void Devourer fragment. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly but surely, the massive entity began to move, drawn inexorably towards the sun's gravitational well. As the fragment plunged into the sun's fiery surface, a collective sigh of relief swept through the Phoenix's cockpit. Their victory was short-lived, however, as the ship's systems began to shut down one by one. "All propulsion systems offline," Caxolith reported, his usual calm demeanor tinged with worry. "We're in a deteriorating orbit around the sun." Carl nodded, the gravity of their situation settling in. "Send out a distress signal. Let's hope Earth can spare a rescue team." Unbeknownst to Carl and his crew, Earth was facing a crisis of its own. In the command center, Admiral Hawthorne received an urgent transmission from High Arbiter Xylos of the Etherian fleet. "Admiral!" Xylos's holographic form flickered into view. "We've detected a massive surge of Void Devourer activity in nearby star systems. The destruction of the central node has triggered some kind of fail-safe mechanism. Dormant fragments are reactivating and converging on your solar system." Hawthorne's face paled. "How long do we have?" "The first wave is already approaching your outer planets," Xylos replied grimly. Hawthorne turned to his staff, barking orders. "Reactivate all defensive systems immediately. Get me Dr. Kuznetsov." Within minutes, the scientist appeared on screen. Hawthorne quickly briefed him on the situation. "Doctor, we need that satellite network recalibrated to create a larger gravitational distortion field. It's our best shot at deterring these incoming fragments." As Earth's defenses scrambled to prepare for the impending onslaught, a new development unfolded on Mars. Captain Marcus Vega and his team at the ancient superweapons station made a startling discovery. "General Steele," Vega's excited voice crackled over the comm, "we found a hidden chamber. It contains some kind of advanced terraforming technology. We think it could generate an energy field around the entire solar system." Steele leaned forward, his interest piqued. "What's the catch, Captain?" "It needs an enormous power source," Vega replied. "More than we have available here on Mars." Steele's mind raced, considering their options. His eyes fell on the schematics of the prototype anti-void energy weapon. A daring plan began to form. "Captain, what if we brought the anti-void weapon to Mars? Could we use it to power up this terraforming technology?" There was a pause as Vega consulted with his team. "It's possible, sir, but transporting the weapon here would be incredibly risky. especially with those Void Devourer fragments incoming. Steele nodded, already formulating a plan. Leave that to me. Prepare your station to receive the weapon. We're going to turn Mars into humanity's last line of defense. As Steele began coordinating the high-stakes mission to transport the weapon, Zarkoth, the Zanari liaison, stepped forward. General, allow me to lead a joint human-Zanari team to escort the weapon. Our transport ships are faster and better equipped to handle Void Devourer attacks. Steele studied the alien for a moment before nodding his approval. Make it happen. Within hours, a fleet of retrofitted Zanari ships lifted off from Earth, carrying the precious cargo of the anti-Void weapon. As they accelerated towards Mars, the first reactivated Void Devourer fragments appeared at the edges of the solar system. Earth's recalibrated satellite network engaged, its gravitational distortions tearing apart the smaller fragments. But larger masses began to slip through, overwhelming the system. In the command center, Admiral Hawthorne watched the unfolding chaos with growing concern. He knew they needed more firepower. His gaze fell on a list of Zanari ship signatures, the remnants of the initial invasion force. Making a bold decision, Hawthorne opened a channel to the Zanari commanders. This is Admiral Hawthorne of Earth Defense Command. We face a common enemy that threatens not just humanity, but all life in this sector. We've proven we can work together. Now, I'm asking you to join us in defending this system against the Void Devourers. As tense seconds ticked by, Hawthorne held his breath. Then one by one, Zanari ships began signaling their agreement to join forces. Meanwhile, near the sun, the Phoenix drifted helplessly, its hull creaking under the intense heat and radiation. Carl and his crew worked feverishly to restore some semblance of control to their crippled ship. Any luck with the communication array? Carl asked, wiping sweat from his brow. Dr. Reeves shook her head. Still offline. We're flying blind out here. As hope began to fade, a crackling sound emerged from their emergency beacon. A familiar voice cut through the static. Phoenix, this is Earth Rescue Team Alpha. We've locked onto your position and are inbound. Hang tight, Commander Baker. We're bringing you home. Relief washed over the Phoenix's crew, but their respite was short-lived. As they watched their rescuers approach, a massive Void Devourer fragment materialized behind the rescue ship, its dark tendrils reaching out hungrily. Carl's eyes widened in horror. Evasive maneuvers, he shouted into the comm, knowing full well that their warning might come too late. The fate of their rescue and their own survival hung precariously in the balance as the cosmic battle raged on. Carl's warning crackled through the rescue ship's comm system, but it came too late. The Void Devourer fragments' tendrils lashed out, enveloping the Earth vessel in a suffocating darkness. The Phoenix's crew watched in horror as their would-be saviors were swallowed by the cosmic horror. Just as hope seemed lost, a sleek silver ship materialized from the star-studded void. Its hull gleamed with an otherworldly sheen, effortlessly deflecting the fragment's attacks. The vessel's pilot, an Etherian named Thalos, skillfully maneuvered through the chaotic space. Phoenix, this is Etherian Scout Thalos. Prepare for emergency extraction, a calm voice transmitted. Carl exchanged quick glances with his crew before responding. Copy that, Thalos. We're ready. The Etherian ship's tractor beam engaged, bathing the Phoenix in a soft blue light. As the crippled vessel was pulled towards its rescuer, Carl felt a slight tremor run through the hull. Tractor lock established, Thalos reported, initiating rapid retreat. The conjoined ships accelerated away from the sun, narrowly avoiding a massive solar flare that erupted in their wake. As they sped towards Earth, the Phoenix's crew watched in awe as fragments of destroyed Void Devourers peppered their path. Meanwhile, on Mars, the situation had reached a critical juncture. Zarkoth's convoy, carrying the precious anti-void energy weapon, came under heavy fire from a massive Void Devourer fragment looming in Mars's orbit. Shields at 15% and falling, a Zanari technician shouted over the din of alarms and explosions. Zarkoth's compound eyes narrowed as he assessed their dwindling options. With a decisive click of his mandibles, he turned to his human co-pilot. Prepare the weapon for emergency launch. We'll use a modified Zanari propulsion system to get it to the station. The human's eyes widened. Sir, the risks. Are necessary, Zarkoth interrupted. It's our only chance. As the convoy's shields flickered and failed, the weapon was jettisoned towards Mars. It streaked through space, a desperate payload carrying the hopes of two species. Zanari and human ships alike provided covering fire, their weapons flashing in the void as they fought to clear a path for the weapon. On the ancient station's command deck, Captain Marcus Vega watched the weapon's approach with nervous excitement. His fingers flew over the control panel, activating systems that had lain dormant for millennia. Come on, he muttered, eyes fixed on the readouts. Suddenly, a beam of energy shot out from the station, enveloping the approaching weapon. The tractor beam, reawakened after eons of slumber, guided the precious cargo safely into the station's main power core. Vega wasted no time. Initiating activation sequence now! The station hummed to life, energy crackling through its ancient conduits. A massive surge erupted from its core, temporarily overloading sensors across the solar system. As the energy expanded, it coalesced into a shimmering, translucent barrier that began to encompass the entire solar system. The effect on the Void Devourer fragments was immediate and dramatic. Smaller pieces disintegrated upon contact, while larger masses slowed and weakened visibly. On Earth, Admiral Hawthorne watched the unfolding events with a mixture of hope and trepidation. "Status report on the barrier," he demanded. "It's holding, sir," a technician responded, "but the energy drain is immense. The ancient station's systems are already showing signs of strain." Hawthorne's lips pursed in grit. "Divert all available resources to support and reinforce that barrier. It's our best shot at survival." As the battle raged on, a new development unfolded in the asteroid belt. Jack Holloway, a grizzled veteran miner, led a mixed team of humans and Zanari through the treacherous debris field. Their sensors had picked up an anomalous energy signature, leading them to a hidden cache of ancient technology. "Would you look at that?" Holloway whistled, running a calloused hand over a sleek hybrid weapon. "Seems our ancestors were cozier than we thought." A young Zanari engineer chittered excitedly. "These shield generators, they could significantly boost Earth's defenses." Holloway nodded, already formulating a plan. "All right, folks, let's get this stuff loaded up and back to Earth. Time's wasting and those void suckers aren't going to wait around." As Holloway's team raced back to Earth with their precious cargo, the Etherian flagship became the site of a crucial breakthrough. Dr. Elena Reeves, working alongside a diverse team of scientists, had unlocked a potential weakness in the Void Devourer's energy signature. "If we can generate a strong enough resonance frequency," she explained, her eyes bright with discovery, "we could potentially disrupt their cohesion at a fundamental level." An Etherian scientist raised a tentacle-like appendage. "But to generate a signal of sufficient strength, we would need to be in extremely close proximity to the largest remaining fragment." Dr. Reeves nodded grimly. "Exactly. It's risky, but it might be our best shot at turning the tide." As this information reached General Steele, he quickly formulated a daring plan. The newly discovered hybrid technology from the asteroid belt could be used to outfit a small, elite strike force. This team would be tasked with delivering Dr. Reeves's resonance device to the heart of the largest Void Devourer fragment. But even as preparations for this mission began, long-range sensors lit up with a new, terrifying threat. A massive Void Devourer entity, dwarfing all previous encounters, appeared at the edge of the solar system. Its size and energy signature suggested it could potentially overwhelm the newly established barrier. As the behemoth steadily approached Earth, the allied forces of humans, Zanari, and Etherians braced themselves for the greatest challenge they had ever faced. The fate of the solar system hung in the balance, with victory far from assured. Certain, the massive Void Devourer entity loomed at the edge of the solar system, its presence a dark promise of destruction. General Steele's voice cut through the tense atmosphere of the command center. "Launch the strike force, now!" On a launch pad nearby, Commander John Hawkins strapped himself into the pilot's seat of a sleek, hybrid tech-enhanced vessel. Dr. Elena Reeves sat beside him, her fingers dancing over a control panel as she ran last-minute checks on their resonance device. "All systems go," she reported, her voice steady despite the gravity of their mission. Hawkins nodded, his mind focused. Let's punch a hole in this thing. The ship's engines roared to life, propelling them into the inky blackness of space. Behind them, a mixed squadron of human and Zanari fighters fell into formation, their hybrid weapons gleaming in the starlight. As they accelerated towards their target, the orbital defense station buzzed with activity. Carl Baker, still bearing the marks of his ordeal near the sun, leaned over a holographic display, pointing out weak spots in the Void Devourer's structure. "Here and here," he said, indicating two pulsing areas on the projection. "These are where we saw the entity's energy flow falter when we were inside it." Admiral Hawthorne nodded, immediately relaying the information to the strike force. "Good work, Baker. Now let's hope it's enough." On Mars, Captain Marcus Vega wiped sweat from his brow as he rerouted power through the ancient station's labyrinthine systems. Warning lights flashed across his console, each one a reminder of the razor's edge they walked. "Shields at 47% capacity and falling," a technician reported, her voice strained. Vega gritted his teeth. "Divert power from non-essential systems. We need to keep that barrier up at all costs." In the asteroid belt, Jack Holloway's improvised fleet of weaponized mining vessels moved into position. His gruff voice crackled over the comm system. "All right, you beautiful bastards. Let's show these void suckers what happens when you mess with our turf." The hybrid weapons mounted on the mining ships hummed to life, their energy signatures a stark contrast to the cold, lifeless rocks surrounding them. As the massive Void Devourer entity entered the outer solar system, its gravitational pull sent shockwaves through space. On Earth, the night sky lit up with ethereal auroras, their beauty a stark counterpoint to the terror they represented. Commander Hawkins's strike force plowed through the first wave of defensive fragments, their hybrid weapons carving paths through the cosmic detritus. But as they drew closer to their target, the ship's systems began to falter. "Energy interference off the charts," Dr. Reeves reported, her fingers flying over the controls. "Adjusting approach vector." Hawkins wrestled with the controls, the ship bucking beneath him like a living thing. "Hold on, people. This is going to get rough." Back on Earth, Carl Baker's insights proved invaluable. The recalibrated Zanari platforms pulsed with energy, their emissions visibly disrupting the Void Devourer's attempts to crystallize its outer layers. Admiral Hawthorne watched the battle unfold on his tactical display, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic glow. "Concentrate fire on those weak spots," Baker identified. "Every second we buy the strike force counts." As the massive entity pushed deeper into the solar system, the moon's orbit began to shift. Tidal patterns on Earth went haywire, coastal cities scrambling to erect emergency barriers against the rising waters. In the thick of the battle, Commander Hawkins's strike force found themselves surrounded by crystalline formations, the entity's defenses adapting to their attack. Hawkins's voice crackled over the comm, tinged with grim drive. "We're not getting through like this. Prepare for impact. We're going in hot." Dr. Reeves's eyes widened as she realized his intent. "John, no!" But Hawkins had already cut the comm. The ship's engines flared brilliantly as he aimed for a fissure in the crystal shell, accelerating to maximum speed. The impact was catastrophic. The ship's hull crumpled, but the hybrid technology held just long enough to punch through the entity's outer defenses. As alarms blared and systems failed, Hawkins's voice came through one last time. "You're in. Make it count." In the debris-filled opening, Dr. Reeves and the surviving crew members pushed forward, the resonance device clutched tightly in their arms. They floated through a nightmarish landscape of pulsing energy and half-formed matter, the very fabric of space twisting around them. As they neared the core, Dr. Reeves activated the device. A wave of energy pulsed outward, causing visible disruptions in the entity's structure. But the creature's massive size worked against them, its bulk absorbing and dissipating the resonance effect. "It's not enough," one of the Zanari specialists chittered, his compound eyes reflecting the chaotic energies surrounding them. "We need more power." Dr. Reeves's mind raced, searching for a solution. They were trapped inside the very heart of the threat they had come to destroy, with the fate of the entire solar system hanging on their next move. As the entity's energies swirled around them, Threatening to adapt and neutralize their last daring plan, the strike force prepared for their final push against the cosmic horror that threatened to devour their world. Dr. Reeves's mind raced, searching for a solution as the entity's energies threatened to overwhelm them. Suddenly, her eyes widened with realization. "The resonance device," she breathed, her voice barely audible over the cacophony of alien energies. "It's not strong enough because we're targeting the wrong area." She quickly pulled up a holographic display, her fingers flying over the controls as she analyzed the data streaming in from their surroundings. The Zanari specialist leaned in, his compound eyes reflecting the swirling patterns of energy. "Look here," Dr. Reeves pointed to a series of pulsing nodes scattered throughout the creature's internal structure. "These aren't just random energy distribution points. They're part of a complex nervous system." The Zanari chittered in agreement. "A decentralized network. Fascinating." Dr. Reeves nodded, her mind already formulating a new plan. "We need to split up and target multiple nodes simultaneously. It's risky, but it's our only chance." As the team prepared to disperse, Dr. Reeves worked feverishly to modify the resonance device. She created smaller, portable versions that could be planted at each node, calibrating them to emit multiple frequencies in tandem. Outside the massive Void Devourer, the battle raged on. Admiral Hawthorne's voice crackled over the comm systems, his tone grim but determined. "All units, concentrate fire on the weak points identified by Baker. We need to buy the strike team more time." The recalibrated Zanari platforms pulsed with energy, their emissions visibly disrupting the creature's attempts to reform its crystalline shell. Taking advantage of this momentary weakness, Jack Holloway's voice boomed across the comm channels. "All right, you beautiful bastards," he growled. "Time to show these void suckers what we're made of. Mining fleet, form up on me. We're going in." Holloway's improvised armada of mining vessels, their hulls jam-packed with hybrid weapons, surged forward. They targeted the fissures created by the Zanari platforms, their concentrated fire widening the gaps and exposing more of the entity's internal structure. On Mars, Captain Marcus Vega's face was illuminated by the flashing warning lights of the ancient station's control panel. The energy barrier protecting the solar system was failing, its strength waning with each passing moment. "We're losing power," a technician reported, her voice strained. "Barrier integrity at 23% and falling." Vega's eyes darted across the readouts, searching for any solution. His gaze fell upon the station's power core, and a desperate plan formed in his mind. "Initiate a controlled meltdown of the power core," he ordered, his voice steady despite the gravity of his decision. "Channel all the energy directly into the barrier generators." The technician's eyes widened. "Sir, that will—" "I know," Vega cut her off, "but it's our only chance to keep that barrier up. Do it." As the station's systems were pushed beyond their limits, a new threat emerged at the edge of the solar system. Long-range sensors detected a group of ships approaching at high speed. Admiral Hawthorne tensed, preparing for a new wave of hostiles. But as the ships drew closer, their energy signatures commitment into a familiar pattern. "This is Commander Kaznar of the Zanari Vanguard," a voice transmission cut through the chaos. "We monitored your conflict from afar. We offer our assistance." Hawthorne exchanged quick glances with Carl Baker and General Steele. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded. "Assistance accepted, Commander. Welcome to the fight." Kaznar's ships, equipped with experimental weaponry designed to disrupt Void Devourer energy patterns, integrated seamlessly into the defensive strategy. Their weapons flared to life, carving new paths through the entity's defenses. Inside the Void Devourer, Dr. Reeves and her team fought their way through waves of antibody-like defenses. The internal environment was hostile, shifting and pulsing with alien energies that threatened to tear them apart. As they approached the final and largest node, Dr. Reeves found herself alone. The rest of her team had fallen, sacrificing themselves to plant the modified resonance devices at the other nodes. Her suit's power was failing, and the entity's defenses were closing in. Dr. Reeves pushed forward, her breath ragged as she clutched the final device to her chest. The central node loomed before her, a massive swirling vortex of energy that seemed to pull at the very fabric of space-time. As she began the delicate process of planting and activating the final resonance device, a transmission cut through the static of her comm system. It was Captain Vega's voice, distorted but urgent. "Dr. Reeves, if you can hear this, we've discovered a quantum entanglement device in the Martian station. We're going to channel Earth's remaining energy reserves directly into the heart of the entity. You need to—" The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Dr. Reeves alone in the pulsing heart of the cosmic horror. She looked at the resonance device in her hands, then at the swirling energy core before her. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, knowing that the fate of Earth and its allies hung on her next move. As Dr. Reeves began the final sequence, the massive Void Devourer entity breached the outer limits of the solar system's defensive barrier. The quantum entanglement device on Mars hummed to life, ready to channel the combined power of Earth's energy grid. In the void of space, human, Zenari, and Etherian forces braced for the outcome of their high-stakes endeavor. The next few moments would determine the fate of not just Earth, but the entire solar system and beyond. The cosmic chess game between life and oblivion had reached its critical move, with Dr. Reeves standing at the center of it all, her fingers poised over the controls that could change everything. The outcome of this cosmic struggle. Dr. Reeves took a deep breath, steadying her trembling hands as she initiated the final sequence. The resonance device hummed to life, its energy pulsing in harmony with the quantum entanglement device on Mars. As the two forces merged, a series of powerful energy waves rippled through the Void Devourer's internal structure. The creature's defenses began to falter, its once impenetrable barriers flickering and fading. Dr. Reeves watched in awe as the swirling vortex of energy before her started to destabilize, fractures appearing in what seemed to be the entity's core. Suddenly, her comm system crackled to life, Admiral Hawthorne's voice cutting through the static. "Dr. Reeves, we're detecting massive energy fluctuations. Whatever you're doing in there, it's working. Hold on tight." Outside, the Allied fleet seized the opportunity presented by the creature's weakened state. Admiral Hawthorne's voice boomed across the comm channels. "All units, concentrate fire on those weak points. This is our chance." The recalibrated Zenari platforms surged forward, their energy weapons tearing into the Void Devourer's newly exposed vulnerabilities. Commander Kaznar's ships joined the assault, their experimental weaponry carving deep gashes into the entity's surface. On Mars, Captain Vega gritted his teeth as he initiated the quantum entanglement device. The ancient Martian station groaned under the strain as Earth's combined power reserves surged through its systems. Alarms blared and warning lights flashed across every console. "Evacuate the station," Vega shouted, his voice barely audible over the cacophony of failing systems. "Get to the emergency shelters, now!" As Vega and his team raced through the collapsing corridors, massive explosions rocked the station. They barely made it to the shelter before the main control room erupted in a fiery blast, cutting off all communication with Earth and the Allied fleet. Back on Earth, the sudden redirection of global energy resources plunged cities into darkness. Emergency generators kicked in, their feeble light doing little to stem the tide of panic spreading through the streets. In the Planetary Defense Headquarters, Carl Baker worked feverishly with his skeleton crew, monitoring the unfolding battle. Inside the Void Devourer, Dr. Reeves felt the creature shudder violently as the channeled energy from Earth collided with its weakened form. The resonance devices scattered throughout its body amplified the effect, creating a cascading wave of destruction that tore through its internal systems. Massive fissures appeared on the entity's surface, releasing bursts of dark matter and exotic particles into space. The Allied fleet pressed their advantage, pouring fire into these newly formed weak points. Jack Holloway's voice crackled over the comm system. "Time to finish this dance, boys and girls. Mining fleet, form up on me. We're going in." His improvised armada of mining vessels surged forward, plunging into the largest fissures on the Void Devourer's surface. As they penetrated deep into the creature's body, they deployed specialized mining charges, their detonations amplifying the damage caused by the resonance devices and the energy surge from Mars. Dr. Reeves, her suit now completely depowered, began a desperate attempt to escape the rapidly deteriorating entity. She pushed herself through collapsing chambers and corridors, narrowly avoiding torrents of corrosive fluids released by the creature's failing biological systems. As she fought her way towards what she hoped was an exit, she felt the Void Devourer convulse. Massive chunks of its body began to break away, scattering across the solar system in a spectacular display of cosmic destruction. On Earth, Carl Baker's eyes widened as he detected a new threat. "Admiral," he called urgently over the comm, "the Void Devourer's death throes have created a powerful gravitational anomaly. It's pulling debris towards Earth. If we don't intercept it, the impact could be catastrophic." Admiral Hawthorne's response was immediate. "All ships form a defensive screen around Earth. Zanari platforms recalibrate to create localized gravitational fields. We need to divert that debris." As the Allied fleet scrambled to protect Earth, a massive chunk of the Void Devourer, roughly the size of a small moon, broke free from the main body. This fragment, housing the creature's primary consciousness, began a direct trajectory towards Earth. Admiral Hawthorne's voice was grim as he addressed the fleet. "All available vessels, converge on that incoming fragment. It's now or never, people. The fate of Earth depends on us." The remaining ships of the Allied fleet, battered and depleted, turned to face this final threat. As they approached the massive Void Devourer fragment, its surface roiled with dark energy, a last desperate attempt by the cosmic entity to preserve itself. Inside the fragment, Dr. Reeves found herself in a nightmarish landscape of pulsing organic matter and crystalline structures. She realized with growing dread that she was trapped within the very heart of the creature's consciousness, hurtling towards Earth on a collision course that could end all life on the planet. As the Allied fleet engaged the fragment in a desperate final battle, Dr. Reeves searched frantically for a way to destroy the entity from within. With no weapons and no power, she would have to rely on her wits and her understanding of the creature's biology to find its ultimate weakness. The fate of Earth hung in the balance as the battle raged on, with humanity and its allies facing their darkest hour against the cosmic horror that threatened to devour their world. The massive chunk of the Void Devourer, housing its primary consciousness, hurtled towards Earth with terrifying speed. Admiral Hawthorne's voice crackled over the comm system. "All available vessels, converge on that incoming fragment. It's now or never, people. The fate of Earth depends on us." The Allied fleet, battered but determined, turned to face this final threat. As they approached, the fragment's surface roiled with dark energy, a last desperate attempt by the cosmic entity to preserve itself. Inside the command ship, Admiral Hawthorne's fingers flew across the tactical display. "Concentrate fire on the fragment's leading edge. We need to slow its descent." The fleet unleashed a barrage of weapons, combining Zanari energy beams, human nuclear warheads, and Etherian gravitational disruptors. The fragment shuddered under the assault, but its sheer size and density allowed it to withstand the onslaught. On Earth, Carl Baker's eyes widened as he watched the fragment's trajectory on the main screen. He turned to his team, his voice urgent. "We need more firepower. Reactivate the prototype anti-void energy weapon." "Sir, that weapon's depleted," a technician protested. "I don't care. Jury-rig it to draw power from the emergency generators and nearby military facilities. Do it now." As the weapon powered up, Baker noticed the energy readings fluctuating wildly. "Unstable," he muttered, "but it's our only shot." In orbit, the Etherian scout ship carrying the rescued crew of the Phoenix approached. The ship's pilot, Thelos, received Baker's transmission about the dire situation. Carl, his body racked with pain but his mind clear, struggled to sit up. "We need to help," he rasped. "Thelos, take us in." "Carl, you're in no condition," Thelos began. "There won't be any condition to worry about if that thing hits Earth," Carl interrupted. "Do it." On Mars, Captain Marcus Vega and his team huddled in the emergency shelter, the ancient station crumbling around them. Suddenly, a section of wall shifted, revealing a hidden chamber. "What in the—" Vega murmured, stepping into the room. His eyes widened as he took in the cache of ancient human Zanari hybrid technology. Among the relics sat a device unlike anything he'd seen before. "Sir," one of his technicians called, I think this generates electromagnetic pulses. If we can calibrate it correctly, Vega nodded, understanding immediately. It could disrupt the fragment's energy field. Get it operational, now. Back in Earth's orbit, Jack Holloway's voice rang out over the comm. Mining fleet, form up. We're going to buy Earth some time. His improvised armada of mining vessels moved into position, forming a tight barrier between Earth and the incoming threat. The ship's enhanced shields glowed as they took the brunt of the fragment's approach. How long can we hold? One of the miners asked, his voice strained. Long enough, Holloway growled. It has to be. Dr. Elena Reeves, having narrowly escaped the collapsing Void Devourer entity, found herself aboard a Zenari scout ship. Her mind raced as she processed the current situation. I need access to your sensors, she demanded, turning to the Zenari pilot. There might be a way to destabilize that fragment. As Reeves worked, the fragment entered Earth's upper atmosphere. Brilliant auroras painted the sky, and electromagnetic disturbances cascaded across the planet's surface. Admiral Hawthorne's voice cut through the chaos. All units, this is our last stand. Dr. Reeves has identified weak points in the fragment's structure. Concentrate all fire on those coordinates. The Allied fleet's weapons converged on the specified points, creating fissures in the entity's surface. Simultaneously, a powerful electromagnetic pulse erupted from Mars, striking the fragment and disrupting its energy field. On Earth, Carl Baker stood before the anti-void energy weapon, his hand hovering over the firing control. May God have mercy on us all, he whispered, and activated the device. A beam of pure anti-void energy lanced upward, striking the fragment dead center. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a soundless explosion that seemed to bend reality itself, the Void Devourer fragment began to break apart. Victory seemed within grasp, but the disintegration created a new problem. Smaller, still active pieces of the entity rained down towards Earth's surface, each one capable of devastating a city. In orbit, Carl's voice rang out from the Etherean scout ship. We need to intercept those debris. Target the largest pieces first. The Allied fleet spread out, joining Holloway's mining ships in a desperate attempt to destroy or deflect the falling fragments. Energy beams and missiles lit up the sky as ships weaved through the deadly hail. On Earth's surface, the overtaxed anti-void energy weapon exploded in a massive burst of energy. The blast vaporized a significant portion of the falling debris, but also leveled the surrounding area for miles. As the skies above Earth became a tapestry of explosions and falling cosmic horror, the planet's population watched in awe and terror. The final outcome of this desperate battle hung in the balance, with the Allied forces racing against time to prevent catastrophic impacts. Admiral Hawthorne's voice, tight with tension, cut through the chaos. Keep firing! We can't let a single piece through! The next few minutes would determine the fate of Earth and its defenders, as humanity faced its greatest test of survival against the cosmic horror that had nearly devoured their world. The skies above Earth blazed with destruction as the Allied forces fought desperately to neutralize the falling Void Devourer debris. Admiral Hawthorne's face was grim, his eyes fixed on the tactical display as he coordinated the fleet's efforts. Sir, we've got a new contact, a junior officer called out. It's the Etherean scout ship with Carl Baker on board. Hawthorne's brow furrowed. Put them through. Carl's voice, strained but determined, filled the command center. Admiral, we've got a unique perspective up here. My experience inside the Void Devourer might just give us an edge. We'll take any advantage we can get, Baker. What do you have? As Carl began relaying his insights, Jack Holloway's voice cut in on another channel. Admiral, the mining fleet's regrouping. We've got a new plan to tackle these fragments. Hawthorne listened intently as Holloway outlined his strategy to use the mining ship's tractor beams to redirect smaller pieces into larger ones. It's risky, Holloway, but it might just work. Proceed with caution. On Earth's surface, the aftermath of the anti-void energy weapons explosion created an eerie, shimmering field that continued to vaporize incoming debris. Emergency response teams scrambled to deal with impacts that made it through, their efforts hampered by the chaos unfolding in the skies above. Aboard the Zenari scout ship, Dr. Elena Reeves's eyes widened as she studied the sensor readings. This can't be, she muttered, her fingers flying across the alien interface. The Zenari pilot turned to her. "What have you found, Doctor?" Reeves looked up, her face pale. "The debris, it's not just falling randomly. There's a pattern to the energy signatures. I think they're trying to reform." She quickly opened a channel to Admiral Hawthorne and Carl Baker, relaying her disturbing discovery. The implications were clear. If the fragments managed to coalesce, they could form a smaller but still deadly version of the Void Devourer. Hawthorne's response was immediate. "All ships, new priority. We need to disrupt the energy patterns between these fragments. Don't let them reconnect." As the Allied fleet adjusted their tactics, the Zenari platforms recalibrated once again, emitting waves of interference to prevent the debris from reforming. On Mars, Captain Marcus Vega and his team worked feverishly to enhance the ancient electromagnetic pulse device. They scavenged parts from the crumbling station, jury-rigging connections, and pushing the device beyond its original specifications. "Sir, we're ready," one of the technicians called out. "But I can't guarantee how long it'll hold together." Vega nodded grimly. "It only needs to work once. Fire when ready." The enhanced EMP burst forth from Mars, sweeping through the debris field surrounding Earth. A visible ripple passed through the cloud of fragments, causing many to break apart into inert pieces. However, the largest chunks remained stubbornly intact, continuing their descent towards the planet's surface. In orbit, Carl Baker's mind raced as he watched the EMP's effect. "It's not enough," he muttered. Then an idea struck him. "The orbital mirrors. Thelos, get me a line to Earth control." As Carl outlined his plan to use the climate control mirrors, Dr. Reeves's voice cut in urgently. "We have another problem. The electromagnetic disturbances are affecting Earth's magnetic field. If we don't stabilize it soon, we'll lose global communications and power grids." For a moment, the weight of the cascading crises threatened to overwhelm them. But then a new voice joined the channel. Dr. Alexei Kuznetsov, leading a team of human and Zenari scientists. "We have a solution," Kuznetsov announced, quickly outlining their plan to use the Zenari platforms to create an artificial magnetosphere. As the scientists' plan was put into action, a shimmering field became visible in Earth's upper atmosphere. Slowly but surely, the magnetic disturbances began to stabilize. With one crisis averted, attention turned back to the remaining Void Devourer fragments. Carl Baker's eyes narrowed as he identified 3 massive chunks that had resisted all attempts at destruction or deflection. "Those are our biggest threats," he said, his voice tight with tension. "And I don't think we can stop them with conventional methods." There was a moment of silence as the gravity of the situation sank in. Then Carl spoke again, his tone resolute. "I have an idea. It's risky, but it might be our only shot." He quickly outlined his plan to use the Etherian scout ship's advanced propulsion system to create localized wormholes, redirecting the debris into deep space. Admiral Hawthorne's voice was grave as he responded. "The risks are significant, Baker, but at this point, we're out of options. You have a go." As Carl and Thalos began calibrating the ship's systems for the unprecedented maneuver, the 3 massive fragments entered Earth's lower atmosphere. Panic spread across the globe as people watched the fiery streaks descend from the heavens. The Etherian scout ship moved into position, its systems humming with nearly unleashed power. Carl's hands flew across the controls, making final adjustments. "Here goes nothing," he muttered. With a burst of energy, 3 swirling vortexes appeared in the sky, directly in the path of the oncoming debris. The first 2 fragments were caught in the wormhole's grasp, vanishing from view in an instant. But as the 3rd and largest fragment encountered the wormhole's event horizon, something went wrong. Instead of being swallowed whole, it began to break apart, threatening to scatter highly energized Void Devourer material across Earth's surface. Carl's eyes widened as he realized the potential catastrophe unfolding before him. In mere moments, he would have to make a decision that could determine the fate of Earth and all its inhabitants. The final fragment of the Void Devourer entity hung in the balance, poised to unleash a new and potentially more insidious danger upon the planet. Planet. In that instant, Carl knew what he had to do. "Thalos," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. "We're going in." The Etherian's multifaceted eyes widened. Carl, the probability of survival is— I know, Carl cut him off, but it's our only shot. Take us straight into that fragment. Without hesitation, Thalos engaged the ship's engines, propelling them toward the disintegrating mass. Carl opened a channel to Admiral Hawthorne, his fingers flying over the controls. Admiral, we're intercepting the fragment. Use the ship's signal as a focal point for your remaining firepower. It's been an honor. Before Hawthorne could respond, Carl cut the transmission. The Etherean scout ship plunged into the maelstrom of energized Void Devourer material, its advanced shielding straining against the onslaught. Alarms blared throughout the cockpit as the ship's systems struggled to cope with the extreme conditions. Carl's mind raced, drawing on his experiences inside the Void Devourer entity. Thalos, route power from life support to the shields. We need to create a containment field. The Etherean's tentacles danced across the controls, making the necessary adjustments. The ship shuddered as it penetrated deeper into the fragment's core, the wormhole's energy interacting with their technology in unexpected ways. Outside, the Allied fleet watched in awe as the Etherean ship disappeared into the heart of the fragment. Admiral Hawthorne's voice, thick with emotion, rang out across all channels. All ships, concentrate fire on Baker's last known position. Let's make sure his sacrifice isn't in vain. Inside the fragment, Carl and Thalos worked in perfect synchronization, their movements a blur as they fought to contain the volatile energy surrounding them. Suddenly, Carl noticed a change in the ship's readings. Thalos, the wormhole, it's expanding. The Etherean's voice was strained. Correct. The resonance between our technology and the wormhole's energy is creating a feedback loop. We're amplifying its effect. As they watched, the swirling vortex of Void Devourer energy and wormhole distortions began to envelop their ship. The cockpit was bathed in an otherworldly light, reality itself seeming to bend around them. Carl, Thalos said, his usual calm replaced by urgency, we're becoming the eye of the storm. The remaining debris is being drawn toward us. Through the ship's viewports, Carl could see the truth of Thalos's words. The sky above Earth was a dazzling display of light and energy, as the last traces of the cosmic threat were pulled into their growing singularity. Alarms screamed as the ship's systems began to fail one by one. Carl gripped the edge of the control panel, his fist clenched. Thalos, it's been an honor flying with you. The Etherean's tentacle reached out, resting briefly on Carl's shoulder. The honor has been mine, Carl Baker. In that moment, as the wormhole collapsed in on itself, Carl thought of Earth, of all he had fought for, all he was leaving behind. A sense of peace washed over him as the blinding light engulfed them completely. On Earth and in orbit, everyone held their breath as the sky erupted in a final, brilliant flash. Then silence. The Etherean ship, Carl, Thalos, and the remnants of the Void Devourer entity vanished, leaving behind only empty space and a stunned quiet. Minutes stretched into hours as the Allied forces scanned for any remaining threats. Emergency response teams on Earth dealt with the impacts that had made it through, their efforts now tinged with a mix of hope and trepidation. Finally, after what seemed an eternity, Admiral Hawthorne's voice broke the silence. All stations, report. One by one, reports came in from around the globe and across the fleet. No new Void Devourer activity detected. The debris field was clearing, revealing a planet scarred but intact. Hawthorne took a deep breath, his eyes scanning the sensor data one last time, before making the announcement that would echo across the world. To all Allied forces and citizens of Earth, this is Admiral Hawthorne. After careful analysis, I can confirm that the Void Devourer threat has been neutralized. I repeat, the threat has been neutralized. A moment of stunned silence followed, then cheers erupted across the globe. In the command center, crew members embraced, tears streaming down their faces. Hawthorne allowed himself a small smile before turning back to the task at hand. This victory came at a great cost, he continued, his voice solemn. We will honor those who sacrificed everything to ensure our survival. But for now, we have work to do. All ships begin search and rescue operations. Prioritize any areas with reported impacts. As the fleet mobilized, Dr. Elena Reeves stared out the viewport of the Zanari scout ship, her mind already racing with the implications of what they had witnessed. She turned to the Zanari pilot, persistence in her eyes. "We need to start analyzing the data from the wormhole collapse immediately. There might be clues about what happened to Karl and Thalos, and we need to understand the full extent of the Void Devourer's effects on our solar system." The Zanari nodded, its multifaceted eyes reflecting the stars outside. "Agreed, Doctor. Our scientists are eager to work with you. This event has opened up new avenues of research that could benefit both our species." As they set course for the nearest research station, Reeves couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and trepidation. They had survived, yes, but the universe had just become a much larger and more complex place. The work ahead would shape the future of not just humanity, but their newfound allies as well. On Mars, Captain Marcus Vega and his team emerged from the ancient station, blinking in the pale sunlight. The air was thick with dust kicked up by the electromagnetic pulse device, but their sensors showed that the atmosphere was stabilizing. "Sir," one of the technicians called out, pointing to the sky. "Look!" Vega followed the technician's gesture and saw a series of bright flashes in the Martian sky, the aftermath of the battle that had just concluded millions of miles away. He activated his comm unit, hailing the orbiting Zanari platforms. "This is Captain Vega. What's our status?" The response came through clearly, free of the interference that had plagued their communications earlier. "Captain, we're receiving reports from Earth. The Void Devourer has been defeated. We're awaiting further instructions." Vega's team erupted in cheers, the sound echoing off the ancient station's walls. But the captain's mind was already racing ahead to their next steps. The station held secrets that could revolutionize their understanding of the universe and potentially help them prepare for future threats. "All right, people," he called out, silencing the celebrations. "We've got work to do. Let's get back inside and see what other surprises this place has in store for us." As they filed back into the station, Vega cast one last look at the Martian sky. Somewhere up there, Earth was safe, thanks to the sacrifices of people he had never met. He silently vowed to ensure their efforts weren't in vain. In the depths of space, unnoticed by the celebrating humans and their allies, a faint energy signature pulsed. It was barely detectable, a whisper among the cosmic background radiation. But it was there, a remnant of the Etherian scout ship's unique wormhole interaction, carrying with it the echoes of two beings who had faced the impossible and vanished into the unknown. The signature drifted, its course unpredictable, heading out into the vast expanse of the galaxy. Whether it was a final farewell or the first sign of an even greater adventure, only time would tell. For now, Earth and its allies had earned their moment of triumph, even as the stars held their secrets close.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.